Nice headband, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's from Nepal. I got to
Oh,
give a
okay.
shout out to my Aunt Francie and my cousin Katie for their store.
Handmade?
Shankara Imports. Yeah, handmade. And they always have products that are essentially empowering women, giving them
That's
their own
cool.
money instead of just getting swindled like most of those businesses operate.
Oh, so you buy the products and they give it back to the people that made it?
It's like they work directly with the women. Like because they're always the ones in the little like rooms just making all these things, shoveling
Hmm.
everything out, weaving. So it's like, hey, let's actually give it to the women themselves and not have anything, because essentially it turns into them getting pimped out for like services with how a lot of these like third world countries and other aspects of underdeveloped areas work. So it's like, yeah, support a good cause and it keeps my ears warm.
What's the name of the company?
Sankara Imports.
That's cool.
Post a link.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, man, how's life been? It's been a minute.
Um, I don't know, man. Yeah, like you said, like how you started before we started recording, connecting with spirit ever more so now.
Right.
How would you describe what that means? Because that probably means a lot to, I mean, that can mean something different to everybody, you know?
Right.
So
Okay.
what is connecting to spirit for you?
Well, I think we have to start with what I see as spirit, right? And to me, it's the intangible.
Hmm.
That's it. It's just the things you can't really see. So for me, tapping in with spirit more has been a lot of intuitional aspects of just really learning to trust the gut, to really listen to that subtle, just it's not a full yes, it's kind of like a maybe, and really being disciplined about it, like not just being second guessing myself and being like, wait, should I trust this? Should I just experiment and see? Like when I feel it, it's a hard yes or a no. Trusting that, going with that, letting that navigate me, opposed to, I guess you would say, like the external senses, in addition to the subtle energies, So it's from the intuition to like what we kind of talked about in the green room, like ancestral aspects, like really tapping in with spirit, really trying to not only safely invite, the guides, the guardians, the gatekeepers, the angels, the ancestors, the teachers, you know what I mean? But to really dance with them and
Hmm.
to listen to the feedback and what's really been requested, because usually a lot of times when people work with spirit, it's like they're asking a question, so it's putting myself in the state to really receive the answer and not judge it, and
Yeah.
to learn again to trust it, and also just be like anything else, with a grain of salt, be very like meticulous with your perspective of how you're going to look through things. Like especially when you're entering into this type of experimental phase, because we're righting the ship as I see it right now. We're blending in the old and the new. So it's been dope. It's been dope.
Yeah, so pretty much you just described tapping in with a certain sense of intuitive guidance, right?
Yeah,
Do you think we all have that?
100%. But are we listening to it? Are we identified with the false? I mean, most people are identified with we can call it like the ego, the body's feedback. Most
Hmm.
people are intimately attached with that understanding of themselves as whatever physical sensation comes up, I'm this, whatever emotion arises, whatever thought arises, they're instantly fixated on it. And that becomes their existence. So like it's it's getting to that point through transcending through that type of attachment, when you can see the feedback of the body and it just really drops away once you recognize your position. Then you start to really question, okay, well, what am I then? Like what is this? So it's just, that's why spirituality is such a misconception, how it's so like conceptualized, because it's like, dude, it's just a process of unfoldment and awakening that we're already doing.
Hmm.
Everyone's already doing it. So the innate intuition that we each have is always there. You've said it perfectly, man. When we're kids, we're closer to it. We're closer to
Yeah.
that recognition of what it is. So it's like we know what it was like. You don't think, you just
Hmm.
live, and
Yeah.
you're living from the heart. And as I think the real difference with the development is that you come from that top down. You leave the mind and come back into the heart, as we did when we were kids. And
Hmm.
that's really the essence of it. So it's like learning to trust your intuition is always there. It's like, yeah, it's learning to trust your heart. Your heart's always known. I mean, that's why we have feelings. They're the boundaries that get crossed.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's just so many different ways to go about it, but like everyone has these abilities. It's more so how they exercise them. It's like any other muscle, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like tapping into the plane of love, as Ram Dass says. And he
Yeah.
calls it the plane of flow as well. So when you act out of the heart,
Mm.
it also seems like you're letting your hands off the steering wheel and going on autopilot a little bit.
Yeah.
And that it's like you're becoming more conscious of the process that you are. So innately, it's almost like your mind becomes to a sense of unconsciousness, like
Yeah.
that autopilot is a sense of like just taking it, letting some weight off your shoulders and kind of just
Hmm.
knowing the direction to go and how to treat people and how to treat yourself. That is the plane of flow. And
Yeah.
that makes life a little bit easier, a little less suffering
Mm.
when you can act out of the heart, when you can just
Yeah.
truly love people and truly love yourself. It's powerful, man. Yeah, once you
Yeah.
tap into that, you don't go back. You realize that's kind of why we're here and what we're here for. Like the mind, all the mind stuff and the noise and the drama that goes on, that's just all part of the process. But the
Right.
problem is when you identify with with that stuff and not with the entire process. If you identify with the entire process, you do receive some kind of intuitive guidance, and
Yeah.
that intuitive guidance allows one to transform their life, and you transform
Yeah.
your life into take actions to just love. It's that simple. It's really simple,
Right.
man. It's not complicated. Like spirituality, quote unquote, we overcomplicate it, man. It's just
Right.
like you just improve your life, so you become a better person, and then from that you treat others better, and we all do that. We create a better world.
Yes.
You got to
Yes. And
tap
it's,
in.
yes. Well, I guess the thing is, like, we're already plugged, we're all plugged in and tapped in. It's just, are you conscious of it? Are you
Hmm.
really truly trying to bring about that intentional effort? And I think that's the real key with anything, really, is the more you focus that intention, the more you really, I guess you would say, perceive concisely, the more, I guess you would say, one pointed you become. And this is where it starts bringing back to the importance of that type of focus.
Hmm.
And really, when you look at yourself and you ponder it, it's like, it's very, very quick in terms of how fast you can unfold when you really see what you're not, which is so,
Yeah.
I guess you would say it's, I like how you put it in the sense of, the journey and the flow of it, because it's funny how you talk about autopilot, because that's something that came up, I feel like it's come up a few times this past few weeks. And everyone's always in this state of doing, but very rarely are people opening themselves up to simply being, for whether it be like a stillness practice or just like letting a creative art or expression carry itself out. And that's the realm of the autopilot becoming the flow. And you
Mm.
in that oneness with it, that immersion of that infinite eternal now.
Yeah.
And that's again, spirituality, like if anything, it's a paradox, because realistically, we're always going on autopilot. We always have these moments of just kind of getting caught up in a task and experiencing the subtleties of time skipping and, being completely absorbed in something. And yet we come back to this state of disbelief that everything we're looking for is inside of us already. We somehow think that it's outside of us, but it's like, no, it's like, it's really, again, just the subtle perspective change, the little pivot of
Yep.
how we see ourselves in this whole process. And like how you're saying, you got to see like the total thing. Like I always am just like, you got to take a step back from the step back to the step back. Like you just got to keep removing yourself from the situation and just
Yeah.
observing it. And when you look at it objectively, it's like you start to see life presenting those neon signs of just
Yeah.
like, don't go that way. This is the same as last time. What are you doing? Do this, And when you really look at it from that sense of like the grand beauty of this life and this experience, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like
Yeah.
I see the play for what it is. And then you can navigate it. It doesn't make it any less intimate or amazing. It makes it more beautiful, because it's like you can start to like, the moves to the
Hmm.
song. It's not just knowing the beat and like being able to hum the lyrics. It's like, no, I know this song in and out. Like I can really dance with it.
Hmm. The song of God, the Bhagavad Gita. You know the song. Yeah,
Yes.
you start to know the Dharma, and the Dharma is like
Mm.
it's a certain kind of like a flow that we all
Yeah.
embody. It's this certain kind of direction that we can all embody, and you can choose to listen to it or you can choose not to. But if you choose to listen to it
Mm.
and surrender to the flow, there's a lot less inertia in your life. And there's any like resistances that you feel inside, or negative emotions, or any kind of darkness. We all got skeletons in our closet.
Yeah.
Those aren't so poignant in our being anymore. Like once you realize that, this flow that everyone can tap into, we weren't told from an early age to know how to tap into that, right?
Mm.
But and because of that, we are faulty beings. Like there's a lot of stuff that we have to go through in order to be on that wavelength at all times, right?
Yeah.
So once you can recognize that, then one becomes more acceptable to our not downfalls, but our stuff that, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I'll say downfall. Like our stuff that makes us human, our
Yeah.
faultiness about humanness,
I like that.
and you don't get rid of that stuff overnight. Like even though we're talking about this and we're like, yeah, man, the plane of flow, like I'm not on that wavelength at all times, but I know it's a good ideal to hold in my head, right? And we can all do
Yeah.
that. And ideally, the ideal is to be at that at all times. Maybe in the
Hmm.
future, we will be an enlightened species and be able to be at one with God, with the ultimate at all times, and kumbaya, live in the Garden of Eden. Maybe we'll be there, but we're not there yet. But the Garden of Eden to me is a mindset right now. And it
Yeah.
starts with the mindset, and then we slowly build it over time, and we release our samskaras, the stuff in our
Yeah.
past that kind of, it's our egotistical tendencies. We release that
Mm.
through time, and then thus we become a better being. It's a whole process. Like this whole thing is simple. Yes, it's definitely very simple, right? But
Yeah.
it's difficult at the same time. Like
Mm.
there's so much just shit in our mind that we have to go through, and we have to sort through and build the right rituals and habits
Ooh.
for our being. And once we do, and we build the right kind of framework for our being, you realize that is part of the flow. It's like building a solid foundation for one to express
Mm.
the infinite and ultimate love that's within us all.
Ooh, I like that. It's funny though, because this is where, for the listeners, I have my own little mantras that I do in my morning routine. And the first one starts off with I am. I'm the perceiver of my reality. I'm the creator of my experience. And
Mm.
that's just the first two lines. Well, technically three, because I am is the first line.
Hmm.
But that right there, I think, is probably the biggest hurdle for everyone, right? Because if you're unwilling to trust in yourself, if you're unwilling to really just go all in into the unknown,
Mm.
unless you're willing to entertain, you can never experience. And I
Mm.
think that's where it comes back to that power of free will and just like if we were looking at like how we can develop into this enlightened species, and really radiate that aspect of love, I think it comes down right to that. The first being we need to love is ourselves. And how many people are closed off? How many
All of
people
us.
haven't, right? And that's the thing that's kind of coming into its own recognition now, is that the importance of really harmonizing your divine feminine, your divine masculine energies.
Mm.
And so I started a group actually, and we had our first like large group meeting. It's called Building Brotherhood. And essentially it's a group of tapped in dudes like ourselves and who have gone in this journey and who are on this path of unfoldment, being able to actually hold sacred space and, have our own ceremony and have a sacred circle where we can tap in not only meditation and energy work, but to, exchange those puzzle pieces of perspective. And the one thing that I've seen that's really encouraging is that these types of mass, I guess you would say, like call to actions have been starting to arise more and more and more. So the communities are forming. So I'm super hopeful and encouraged that this kind of era of enlightenment, or at least intentional conscious living, is quickly upon us. And it's funny because we talk about it at the green room, but it's like, yeah, dude, I think honestly see the new way is being created right now. We're
Yep.
doing it. And everything that I've been tapping in with has just been very pleased and very excited with the work that's getting done, because it's changing the game. It's revolutionary. It's our own, and this is where I always try to remind people is like the detriment and the sadness behind not everyone really waking up is purely because we don't know that we're royalty.
Yeah.
People don't know that we are like in the pristine era of existence. And to be here right now is such a gift and an honor to go through these types of transformations and mass societal changes. And to think about how quickly things have picked up since we have just been little kids. It's such a tragedy that the number one cause for people to not really be in this path of enlightenment or healing or awakening, ascension, whatever you want to call it, is really a lacking of self-love.
Mm.
And because it's that same self-love or lacking of that creates the low self-esteem, the low self-worth, the shame. It creates the fear. It perpetuates the otherness. And ultimately, it's the one hurdle that people don't overcome. Is it's always this, well, why I can't, why not me? It's always them, and very few people, like, unless you're like someone like clearly like we've been on this path, we've questioned it, we've had to come to this point of like confrontation within ourselves. It's just like, why not me?
Mm.
And how
Yeah,
many
that's good.
people will really entertain themselves as that hero in their own movie?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are so conditioned just to give their power away, to look for someone else for the external, to give them the power, the support, the trust, the belief? But it's like, no, like until you love yourself, that's only really when the journey begins. And for me, it was the tough love. It was the recognition that I knew nothing. The toughest truth and hardest pill to swallow, that it's like everything you've done up until now, your entire 18 years of existence, don't matter.
Yep. Wow.
Like, and just being like, okay, like, what are you going to say about it? Like, nothing. I have nothing to say to that. And I guess the next step is, well, what am I? What is real?
Yep.
What do I know about myself that is actually present and valid? And I guess that's the kind of hurdle and challenge, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I guess you would say this path isn't for everyone, because most people don't really want to pour that love onto themselves that's entirely sincere and genuine.
Mm. Yeah. Why do you think that's like, why is it so hard to love ourselves? Like, what do you think it goes back to, like I said, we're not programmed to, like, we're literally brought up in a world that does not show us the way of this self-love?
Yeah, I could see that. I think it's definitely a lot of the external aspects, but ultimately we're not really taught how to handle the tool that is this body,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what if we got raised in the understanding of like, little kids being like, I am mad, and like parents being instantly like, no, 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 you're observing anger.
Yeah. It's a conscious
Like,
parenting. Yeah.
but seriously, I think that's one of the cool things that I've gotten a chance to experience, at least with some of my clients, is like, one in particular, it's like two sons and the mom are like the meditation clients. And like being able to see someone have like a conscious parenting method,
Mm.
and to see like the byproduct of the kids, and to see how quickly they can kind of like put these pointers to application and assimilation, and then wisdom just naturally forms from that.
Yeah.
It's been trippy, dude. It's been
Mm.
like, yo, this is the future. Like, this is what could happen. It's like
Yeah.
kids not going down those emotional cul-de-sacs of substance abuse, or completely just giving up on grades in school
Mm-hmm.
from just a simple conversation. Like,
Yeah.
because I look back at my own life and I'm like, man, how different would my life have been if I had like 4 conversations at like those moments where I just needed someone to talk to?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm.
I think that's the thing, that's the potential that's changing here, is that, hopefully that people change the way that we approach raising children and bringing beings into this world, that we can get
Yeah.
some type of progress in terms of how we develop consciously. But I mean, ultimately, it's like it's a rare thing, I guess, too, where you either have some people who are just hardwired, I feel, to just not take authority and certain things. I know at least that's one of the common cores that I've seen for a lot of people that have been on the spiritual path and developed, is that they're always been very questioning and curious about things, especially like authority and rules.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, how's it for you? Like, do you feel like that's a similar like
So,
recognition or perspective?
so you're saying that people that are tapped in spiritually are questioning of authority and, the system, the
Just
paradigm?
I would just say they're just more curious. I would say like you could probably break that down. I'd say fundamentally they're more curious. They've
Oh,
kept,
yeah.
they've retained their curiosity.
Yeah, almost like
It
a
wasn't beaten
childlike.
out of them.
Yeah. You keep that childlike curiosity in you, for sure. Yeah, because it is almost like, almost maybe literally or figuratively beaten out of us. to like not be curious about what this world is and what the hell we're living in. It's just like go to
Hmm.
work, pay your bills, come home, watch TV, go on YouTube, go on Facebook, and you're constantly tuned into something else. But
Mm.
and that takes away from curiosity. I feel like if you're truly curious, like you said, about yourself, then yeah, that's when the fun starts, man. When you're truly like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
Whoa, what am I? Right? When you are truly, and not even just on face value saying, what am I? And then answering, a human being. I am Gary. No, like just sit down for a second, right? And say, what is this?
Yeah. What is life?
What is this moment right now? Right? I've asked those like questions plenty of times. And if I had a conversation, like you said, about that concept in my early age, then I wouldn't have had to go through the inertia of, growing up
Yeah.
in to this life now and having to go through the struggle of the spiritual path, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies, you know?
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
consciously raising curious people, because yeah, you can't just, that's the thing too, right? It's like, how do you do it? I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't know how to really, I don't have any experience on this, so take my word with a grain of salt. But I feel like you can't, just like anybody else, you can't teach your child like, hey man, you can be like, hey man, did you know your infinite consciousness and all one process unfolding upon itself all at once? The kid would be like, Dad, what are you talking about? Right? So you have to allow the child a certain sense of guidance to be able to find that themselves. How do you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think we can lead our children to better practices in their life, so they don't get sucked into TikTok and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it's having the definitely having the right conversations for sure, but I don't think that's it. I think it's establishing lifestyles and certain framework for these children to
Truth.
be able to just ask the question like, what is this? Like, what's going on? And don't tell them, because what happens, right, is I never went to church. I never had any kind of dogma that was placed upon me when I was a kid. So naturally, I didn't have the answers. So I had to ask the answer myself, like, what the hell is going on? What is this? What is this
Right.
conundrum that we're caught in? When
Yeah.
a lot of people, they get sucked into dogmatic, thought forms from their parenting. They're like, okay, you want to know what you are? Well, we're going to send you to church and they're going to tell you what you are. And that,
Ooh.
that's not the right way to find that inner truth. If you're getting it from an outer truth from some guy you don't even know that you call father, or just any kind of dogmatic principle where they brainwash kids at a young age, you're not curious, because in order to be curious you have to have questions, and you're not going to have questions unless some may, but a lot of people don't have questions if they're getting fed these answers, quote unquote,
Yeah.
on a daily basis. And you're at a young age, your brain is so malleable. We're
Yeah.
so easily swayed one way or the other because you don't know anything when you're a kid, and then you have this authority figure telling you how the world is and what you are and how you should act. That's not right. I don't think
No,
that's
not at
right.
all.
I think maybe the intentions are pure, I guess, but it's not the way to go about it, man. I mean, and I'm not saying I have the answers on how to go about raising a conscious civilization in the next generation, but it starts with just providing the opportunity for children to be like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
What's going on?
100%. 100%. And well, you hit the nail on the head in the sense of, you know, it's not telling people what to do anymore. It's giving people the tools and the resources to really navigate the play. And I think that's the culture, societal, the kind of subtle changes that we make just by doing us and living our lives.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that is the reason why we had to go through this path, as I see it, these trials by fire, so we could really set a foundation of like, no, these are clearly things we do not want to do.
Yeah.
I think we're well versed in what doesn't work in our current civilization, but it's the next step really is learning to trust again our intuition, and we come back to that by knowing what has always resonated with our heart, and that really truly is the throne of the soul, as I see it, is living in that
Oh.
compassionate space of just our inner kingdom,
Mhm.
that space of love and compassion, that space of understanding and divine respect of namaste. Like, I respect the divine being within you, like, to really understand on that knowing, that in that experiential knowing level, that highest form of knowledge, right, that we are of the same essence. that the ground of being that your I am and Gary stands upon is the same ground of being that, my I am and Peter stands upon,
Yep.
and the different layers of it. And that naturally just mitigates and eliminates so many issues of
Yeah.
just the otherness, the fight, the I guess you'd say the corruption, the need for power and those things, because it transitions it back to that state of, everyone's here to uplift each other. So I think that naturally would always change just the basic interactions and how we teach, because that's ultimately where the programming begins. As we all, know, I went through public school, and that's definitely a lot of the brainwashing I experienced, where, they taught you certain things of how to say, how to talk, how to write, and not necessarily valued your independent perspective.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I feel like we again are overcomplicating even just the solutions. I mean, because realistically, we do a whole lot more that's unnatural to the human spirit that's natural. Really, like we could probably fix and course correct this whole thing within a generation just by not doing like 95% of the toxic shit that we do and promote. Like
Yeah.
I was actually saw a meme about this when I was talking with a friend yesterday, and it was like, could you imagine if just no one supported celebrities? Could you imagine if
Yeah.
they just all posted stuff on social media and no one liked it? Like if we as the people could stand in solidarity, like, certain protests and things we've seen all over the world, where it's like, could we just all just not do something
Yeah, we
just
could.
to see how it breaks their own matrix of, idolism and ridiculousness?
Hmm.
But that's the type of society that I feel like, it comes back to integrity, right? You could stem that off of self-love. It's really just not taking what we know we're lesser than capable of. Like
Yeah.
we have so much potential as a species, because even just conversations like these, just, yeah, we could fix. I think just through our conversations from this and creative chat, dude, we probably solved like 60% of the world's problems if people were to just apply it.
At least 60.
At
Yeah.
least 60. Well, I mean, again, because it's like we make life so much more like difficult and challenging than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Truthfully, when you're vibing in the flow, like you kind of loosely said it, you're like, oh, I'm not in the flow like all the time, and just like to be in the flow, is that the state? And it's like, I don't know if that's even the objective,
Yeah.
to be in the flow all the time. I feel like that's kind of, I guess, maybe the end goal is just to be so much in that just essence of pure, just living in the heart, that everything is just that dance. But like, honestly, when you're just living with the thought that this is a divine play, that this is such a grateful opportunity to be here, and
Yeah.
you just kind of keep that at the forefront of your mind, and just that recognition of oneness, just the love, like the universal love and trust and faith in life. Like, I don't know what changes, but life's pretty dope when you do that. Like,
Yeah. I know what you mean. Even when you're not in the flow, you can be in the flow mind state, right?
yeah, it's like even when well, I guess that's where it comes back to the identification, because it's like, even though there can be experiences where there's intense physical, like an energetic just tension and
Yeah.
uneasiness, it doesn't deter the flow and like the playfulness.
Yeah, I know
It's
what you
just
mean.
like, oh, this is a kind of a shitty situation, but then again, it's like it's only as shitty as you really want to ruminate in it.
Hmm.
And that's where it comes back to perspective, where it really is just a game of like, how do we want to approach it? It's like, if was life going to beat you down 10 times, and are you going to say like, well, not 11, or are you going to be like, I'm done?
Exactly. Yeah, dude. It's that simple. It's just a simple mindset change. And yeah, you don't always have to, I don't know, it's like the mindset. I like how you said the flow. It's not always being in the flow, right? But at
Mm-mm.
least we know that the flow is there. And I think
Always.
that's the flow. Like we know that we're going to suffer.
Peak flow.
Peak flow is not always consistently being in the flow, but knowing that the flow is there because we know that we're going to
Always.
suffer. I know that I'm going to
Yeah.
suffer, and it's going to be
Yeah.
physical, emotional suffering, spiritual suffering, some may
Yeah.
say. It's going to happen. But at least if I can keep in the back of my mind, that's all Maya. That's all the
Yeah.
dance. It's just another dance move. Then that's the
Right.
flow. It's not being like um it's not being like so passive to everything. We just say, "Hey man, just go with the flow." It's like, nah, it's okay to Be emotional. It's okay to
Yeah.
cry. It's okay. It's even okay to
Yes.
be angry. You feel all your emotions, but just don't identify with that, and know that you're greater than all of your suffering. Like anything
Yes.
that you're gonna go through, that's the flow. And how do we do that? Going back to it, man. You love yourself and you love others.
Yes.
It's that simple. That's how you get into this flow, and you realize that all of this is just noise. This is all just
Yes.
some kind of play, and it's a play or a test. I like to sometimes think it's a test for us,
Right.
and it throws,
Depending on the situation,
yeah,
definitely.
life will just throw you stuff and you'd be like, oh, you failed the test. You forgot you were infinite consciousness. But
Repeat.
if you stay on your practice, you stay on the certain mindset, and you set like certain rituals for yourself or certain patterns, you'll be able to pass the test next time. And that's
Mm,
kind of like the essence of karma. We realize that, um, everything, like you said before, I liked it. You were like, well, why not me? You realize that all of our karma is leading us to be able to develop that mindset. Why
yeah.
not me? Rather
Yeah.
than why me? Because if you
Yes.
continue on why me, then you keep building other situations where it's going to be why me, the darkness, it's always happening, right? But if you can continually get on that wavelength, and it's a lot easier said than done, obviously, like we've said, a lot easier said than done, to why not me? Why, or how do I learn from this? Even though it sucks, like how do I know that this temporary suffering is for me? And that's that's the flow, right? That's the flow.
Yeah. Well, even there, I think that's like such an important point to highlight is there are so many awakened beings that don't believe that they're awakened beings because
Yeah.
there's even them, there's this like spiritual, I guess you would say like attachment to these concepts, or you can call it like esoteric conceptualism, right? Like
Yeah.
where they're just so enamored with this idea of a guru, a teacher, this and this and this. And yes, there's an importance of that type of, being, I guess we could say, but it's largely gotten thrown out of proportion. And honestly, I would say put on a pedestal
Mm-hmm.
because I would say the realist of real are always the ones low in the cut that like are not about the heat because there's so many different avenues of exploitation and temptation and just really abuse that can arise from that type of ideation where it's giving so much power and divine authority to someone else versus like, no, 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 it's you. It's not me. It's all of us. Like this isn't anything special. It's what we already are. Like
Yeah.
there's so many people that again, like they just give the keys to their kingdom away
Ooh.
where that's the aspect of taking yourself even out of the flow. Like so many people are probably in the flow and have been having these crazy recognitions and just have convinced themselves that they're not awakened.
Mm.
I know I did that at one point where I was just like, wait, all these things are coming up again. Does that mean I lost it? And it was just like, and life is just, I know life and spirit just sitting there just looking at me just like this dummy. Like, no, you didn't. Because again, that point just went right over my head. So,
Mm-hmm.
give me 2 months to really kind of get back on it and be like, oh, I get it. It's always there. And that's
Mm.
again, like the biggest spiritual like misconception is that you somehow like, turn into Neo from the Matrix and you're all of a sudden, stopping bullets and flying around. It's just like, yeah, you can do some dope stuff, not gonna lie. But
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of it isn't to be flashy. It's more so you just fall in love with the reverence of what life is. Like you really do fall in love with that childlike self again, because it's like this play just becomes so much more beautiful.
Mm.
And I guess it's the liberation. I was actually trying to put this into words the other day for a student, and it was liberation to me, at least, isn't what I thought it was when I went into spirituality. I assumed liberation was like you break the chains off, you're just jumping in between realms, like
Yeah.
you're
Astral
just full on.
projecting. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You're full on just like just like force pushing people, you know.
Yeah.
It was it turned into this freedom of the heart, this liberation from fear, I guess you could say is the best way to
Yep.
put it, because when you recognize that it's always been okay because it's always been one, that you've always been looked over, that no matter what you see and have seen things as arduous or challenging or difficult, was always just putting you on this path, as you said, to really just question the self and come back home. And that's the essence of really the trust that forms, is that you start to see life from that point of, I guess we'd almost say that might be one of the leading avenues or opportunities to develop that why not me. Because when you realize that it's never been a why me type of situation,
Mm-hmm.
the only other thing you're left with is to look at it as doing something for you. And it's always building you to this point of whatever you're experiencing or unfolding or freeing yourself from. But that liberation ultimately comes in that trust in life,
Mm.
knowing yourself as life. Like that's a next level trust, that it's like, okay, no matter what happens with this body, if it drops, like I'll be okay.
That's
Like
heavy. Yeah.
that's heavy.
Seriously. I mean, how do you come to that? Like, you can't just tell somebody that. I mean, you can't tell somebody like, "Hey, man, it's okay if you die." How do you come to that, man? That's such a profound mindset, and I don't even know if I'm completely on that wavelength, but I have faith in that idea to know
Mhm.
that it's okay. It's part of the process. How did you come to that?
um what I would say is the fear of God experiences.
Is it through
I had
meditation?
um yes and no. So the first introduction into it, so I had it arise 3 times before I was able to really like not panic and freak out.
Hmm.
But the first time was definitely meditation. And it was during this time where I was, unfolding from a lot of recognitions and attachments at that point, where it was just like, boom, it was just dropping away from the mind, falling into the heart. And then it was just ultimately like that awakening the gut, like, okay, like, what is this? Like, I get that I'm not the mind. I get that everything is of the same essence, but what does that mean?
Exactly.
And that was kind of like my next question in my own inner looking at this point. And that's when it started, like the first experience started to happen was that. And it was this, I guess you would say, in immediate threat of death was just like
Mm.
everything through the body was just like chills. My heart was racing. I was sweating profusely. And the mind and the thoughts were just like, you're going to die. Like it was just the panic of just like, oh my God, your heart's going to explode. Like you're going to have a heart attack. You're going to stroke out. Like you're dying. You're dying right now. And it was just like this fear of just like, oh my God, I'm dying. 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 And it got to the point where like I felt like my heart was going to pop out of my chest, and then it was like open the eyes, catch your breath, like try not to hyperventilate, like try to calm the body down. The second time was I was just watching a show,
Oh
and
yeah.
I can't remember what it was, and a character had died, and for some reason it was just like it just put me in that state of just thinking about death.
Is this
And it was
sober?
just, yeah, this was completely sober, just chill. This is like after dinner, just like watching a movie with my ex, and I was just
Okay.
like, I'm sitting here just like, oh my gosh, like I'm seeing it again, like that feeling's coming back. And then I like remember going to a meditation. She had no idea. She was just watching this because it was like a movie, I'm pretty sure. But it was like um I just drop away, and I felt myself leaving my body. And I was just like, no, you're dead. This is how you die. Don't. And then I
Huh.
like came back again, sweating, just like like what the was that? And then the
Yeah.
third time, it was a meditation, it was outside, and the thought came back up and the experience came back up. And then it took that reminder, because I was always working through it, like why did I stop, like what's stopping me, like I'm trying to remind myself as much as I can in the day that it's just like this is just an ethereal experience, like everything is of the same energy, everything is of the same essence, you're not the mind, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
so by the time that happened the third time, and this is all within like maybe like 4 or 6 months, like because it would come in randomly. Like I tried to induce it a few times in meditation and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
um I would never get to that point of palpitation of just like the actual fear of just like you're done, like it's
Mm.
game over. Like it felt very much so as if I had like a gun in my face. Unfortunately, I've had that situation, so I know
Damn.
what that threat feels like, where it's like, oh my God.
Was that
uh
one of the three moments, or was that you just had a gun pointed at your face? That was something else.
that was when I was younger. That was
Oh,
some bullshit.
that must have been psychedelic too, though, right? Like
some
that's staring in the face of death right there.
some drunk some yeah, it was my friend's drunk older brother, and
Damn,
just like, yeah, was real wily. And
that's not cool.
no, not at all, dude.
Damn.
That was like what I think 7th grade going into 8th grade.
Wow.
um yeah, it's not tight, but
Well, you made it.
the yeah, right, made it, man. Hey, we're here. uh Sorry for the bomb. Now we're here, but it's one of those things where, with the third time when it came up, it was it's okay. That thought just like cut through, where it was just like, it's okay. Like, you know that this isn't it. Like, you know that you're beyond the body. You know that you've experienced that. You trust it now. I guess it just came to that point where that was the new autopilot, right?
Okay.
Where it was just like, yeah, okay, I know that now. I've
Mm.
been dancing this kind of ethereal dance for a little bit. I could see it. And then when it popped, it was just like, when you take a deep breath from being under the water for a while, it was just that refreshing, liberating, and then just that mountain of trust in the gut. That was just that knowing that it's okay. And that was where the trust in life, and that was where the full liberation really came full circle, because it was just like, oh, okay, you always got me.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
okay,
powerful.
cool. Yeah. So that's
Mm.
like, I guess you would say, and again, it comes back to the perspective, because you have to be able to entertain it to experience it. So if you're unwilling to entertain it, then you're never going to experience it. I guess that's the thing for, not overlooking what you've experienced and know. Like being able awakening from the mind, knowing that you're not the thoughts, being able to experience again like oneness and that effortlessness of being, just boundless state. Those are things that you have to, like, I had to look into and be like, okay, well, what the fuck did I experience? Like,
Mm.
what was that? And
Mm-hmm.
I had to actually understand it before I could assimilate it. And I
Yeah.
guess that's kind of the issue with spiritual conceptualizations of so many different pointers and things is, you're just, to me, you're just collecting books. You're not actually reading them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably again, one of the bigger hurdles is very few people, again, it comes back to that. Are they going to entertain it for themselves?
Yeah.
They can always look and point and be like, oh, well, they do that. They can do that. But
Mm.
are they going to put themselves in the position? Like I remember like with Muji, because I learned from a lot of the main teachers that people listen to, but they all only took me to a point. The one who really did it, I always got to give him a shout out, Srina Sargadata Maharaj. That if you want, I am that. If you want some powerful stuff, like look at that guy, because he was one of those in the cut yogis, didn't speak English,
Mm.
was just a regular dude.
Mm.
And he definitely carries weight when he speaks.
Mm.
And those are those moments where I was just like, okay, well, like with Muji, for example, the first time I heard like, you're not your mind, I was just like, okay, well, I could take that as a concept and just say it like, I'm not my mind. But what makes him say that?
Mm.
What
Yes.
perspective does
Yes.
he have if he can say that?
Yep.
Okay, well, what will my life and experience look like if I come from that position that my mind isn't real?
Mm.
Okay, let's try it. And then boom, you experience it, you see it, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Exactly, man.
That's
Yeah, you
it.
described it really well. Because yeah, you can take these ideas that we've been speaking about as at face value,
Yeah.
or you can just read these things, just listen to these truths, but it's not a truth until you fully grok it in your being. You fully
Yeah.
encompass that and you feel what that feels like. Because
Mm.
yeah, you can say I'm not my mind, I'm not my thoughts, but what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Like you said,
Yeah.
what does that really mean to me in my situation?
Yeah.
And how can I get to a point where I can say that fully and not just repeating Muji's words, like fully feel
Exactly.
that as well as being able to say it. And
Yeah.
um yeah, that's the process, man. It's all up to us to be able to do that and to
Hmm.
really find that source of liberation within us. And once you get the glimpse, you got the glimpse 3 times. Once you get a glimpse of that, you don't go back. There's
You
no
really
going
don't.
back.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. And
You
that's the
just
beautiful aspect.
yeah, you're always on that wavelength of, well, at least for me, I'm speaking for myself. I'm always like, wait a second, because I've had that fear of God, like near death experience, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ever since then, it's my life hasn't been the same, and I'm always like, wait a second, what was that? Like every day, just probably every day, I'm like, wait, what was that? What just happened? What did I just experience? And it felt like, as you described, it felt like I died.
Yeah.
Whoa! But I made it, and I came back, and I think that's a lesson. somewhere. That's the lesson. And if you miss that and you just get
Mm,
lost in the fear of that, of the fear of God, then you're going to miss the lesson. But the lesson is, like you said, man, it's all good.
mm.
It's all okay. You got me, right? Like you
Yeah,
said,
like
we're good. And that's powerful, man. That's
we're
liberation.
yeah. And I think that's again like how many people are caught up in like how I know I was, where it's like you think it's some type of like Dragon Ball Z like level unlock where it's just like now you're going Super Saiyan, like dipping out of the matrix at will. And it's like there's always perks and powers and abilities that are
Hmm.
able to experience, but nothing beats realizing the play. You know, nothing beats getting that behind the scenes look. And I
Hmm.
guess that's the whole purpose of, you know, plant medicine, all these things to kind of get those peaks behind the veil. But it's the same thing as the spiritual pointers and concepts where it's like, yes, those are peaks behind the veil, but they're meant just to show you the potential of
Exactly.
like, you know, that's what's out there. There's other things you can't explore other than just this physical realm.
Hmm.
And it's funny, you know, as you say that point of just like in your own recognition of just like, you got me. It's that essence of how many of us remember that moment of when we go to sleep?
Nobody.
Like, exactly. And that's one of those things that my mind takes me to those types of things where it's just like, okay, well, why am I scared of anything if I have no idea how I'm going into like laying down, cuddling up, being cozy in my bed to turning into the dream school and being like, oh, cool, we're here. Like
Mm.
that seamless transition
Every
is
night.
every night is something we overlook. And it's just like, and that's one of the things that actually probably got me through the fear of God concept of just like that, those offerings that life was trying to be like, okay, like, hey, are you about it? Are you about it? Do you actually trust me? Do you really trust me?
Hmm.
And it comes back to that sense of where is my mindset when I am about to go to sleep? I was
Mm.
like, is it not beautiful and peaceful? I was like, do I not eagerly await to put my head on the pillow some days? You know, am I so quick to drop out of the dream to really, you know, just KO? And when I started to really look at it in that sense of just like, I guess you'd almost say like a loving way to look at sleep,
Yeah.
it kind of helped me be like, okay, well, this is no other difference in terms of a transition.
Yeah. It's a big
So
transition. And we don't
yeah,
talk about it.
it's a
We all
huge
do it.
one.
We all do it. We go to these realms every night, right? Every single one of us, just about, goes to this realm where anything and everything is possible and it feels real. And the people in there, they look real, they sound real. We
Mm.
may even know some of them.
Or meet some of them.
Yeah, or meet some of them.
That's the
And
trippy one.
and then we come back and we realize, damn, it wasn't real. But what? All right, so then it's like, well, what is this then? Is this just another dream?
What is this? Yes. Yeah,
Might
dude.
be. I think it is.
I think that's the state of when you really, honestly, if I had to say, if there's a few like experiential kind of like check marks to see where people are at in their unfoldment or like where they're at in their recognition of their position in the play. One of them is like, okay, so do you feel like life's a dream sometimes? It's just like, yeah, I've been having that quite a bit recently. It's just like, okay, yeah, you're doing good. Just ground a little bit. Just you'll be good. You'll be
Yeah.
good. But that's definitely something that has been really interesting to once you kind of wake up to the light matrix of love that this playground is.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, how can I dance with it and really utilize this position from what I've experienced? And I think that's the kind of the real highlight that I like to kind of point people towards if that's like their form of motivation is just like, listen, like life doesn't really give you the dope things to explore until you come to a certain point of humility and recognition of your position in this whole game.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're coming up from that place of ego in any way, shape, or form, it's going to become another outlet that's going to hurt you and others. So it's like life is always kind of putting us through this process of refinement to being like, okay, they can dance. They played in this playground for a little bit. They're ready for the next one. It's just like, ooh, cool, you know, like new things to open up. Because I feel like once I really got over that fear of God moment and that trusting life again, that's when the real cool stuff started to happen.
Hmm.
And it's like almost when it's like the awakening arose, it's like the real work began. because that then it comes from this position of divinity, this sovereign recognition of your own beingness and the respect of others' beingness. You start to dance this dance and escape all these karmic loops and astrological horoscopes and all these different things where it's just like, no, you transcend all that shit. You transcend the stock playbook that everyone gets. And then you start to really be able to navigate your own ship, and life just starts presenting things for you. And I think that's the dope stuff, because then even more stuff unfolds, and it's even more beautiful.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, because it's all love. So it's just like your knowing of love and this experience of love just grows stronger and stronger. So it's just like you just fall in love with life again on a deeper level. And it's just a continual dance. Like awakening never ends. You know, I think that's probably the biggest misconception is, oh, enlightenment, liberation, blah, blah. It's like, okay, so you open one door, you got a million more now. Like, have fun. You do have fun, though. It's not like something that you're like, the mind might take that and be like freaking out and be like, oh God, no, it's never ending. It's like, no, like that's the beauty of it, is like you can just explore it more and more and more. And like dream school is probably one of the coolest things that I've tapped into. And that's, again, working with spirit, working with, ancestors, and requesting information before I go to sleep. Treating, I guess you could say, the perfect way that I could sum up this is, one of the things that I've been really developing is tantric living. And that's not like everyone thinks tantra is like sex. It's like, no, tantra is really more so just intentional, conscious, like aware, like self-aware, self-knowing, intentional action. And that's really the kind of ritual that I've been putting with everything. So it's like from fire gazing in the morning, lighting a candle at dinner, lighting something that smells nice in the shower.
How does
like
sex
really
get mixed up in that? Like, is it intentional sex? Is that tantra? Like, it's more.
Yeah, you get into like intentional sex, you get into like sex magic, you get into, but really ultimately the practice comes into you're worshiping your partner as that other aspect of the divine.
Okay.
So it's just like, you would have the feminine and the masculine. So that's the essence of what you're really trying to emulate, and worshiping that and being sacred about it, where it's like, we're not just in here getting lusty gusty. It's like we're connected on the levels of the heart. I'm feeling your energy while we're in the moment. Like we're eye gazing while we're like, we're getting intimate.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is I guess I would say, is being more intimate and intentional with living has really started to unlock so many different dope things. Like, then again, bringing it back to dream school. So it's like, just for people, if they're curious and they want to try things themselves, is my protocol is the last half hour to 60 minutes before I go to bed, I will listen to some type of shamanic drumming, or just like, not even like intentionally listening to it. I'll just have it on in the background.
Yeah.
And like, as I'm going to sleep, I'll turn things off so it has a little bit loaded and playing. And then like, as I'm going to sleep, that's in the background. While that's all playing, just to kind of get you back in that like tribal circle, like whatever it is, like it could be like didgeridoo, it could be flute. It's like whatever gets you into that state of just like, ooh, okay, we're mellowing out. Then you start to in tandem intentionalize something. You bring to the forefront of your mind like something that you want to learn, something that you want to heal from. And then I always formulate it as a question. I ask for assistance. I'm like, so I ask my peoples. I ask, I guess I'll be proper and do the full protocol. So I call forth upon my gatekeepers, my guardians, my guides, my ancestors, my angels, my teachers, my celestial and planetary siblings looking over me, providing love, support, assistance. I ask that you show me, and then whatever it is. And when I started to do those experiments, like show me something that I might be aware of that's still weighing on my heart. Like show me something that I can heal from that I might not be conscious of. I started asking those types of questions, and then I'd be immediately in this almost lucid dream state where I'm not lucid enough to interfere with it. I'm just present. I'm lucid enough just to know that this is the dream.
Yeah.
And I'm just, again, on autopilot in the dream, just letting it unfold.
Yeah.
And I would be experiencing these crazy situations. And one of them was essentially trauma from my own past played out from a friend, and witnessing it and being someone stopping it, and just having like a heart to heart in the dream. And then when I woke up, I felt so much lighter.
Wow.
It was like instantly just like, wow, that's not right. Like, it's okay. Like, it's okay, man. Like, and like consoling my friend in the dream. Woke up. And for me, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I feel great. I
Hmm.
feel like I just took off like a jacket or a vest or something, and I just feel lighter. So I started to dabble in that even more, and then ask for some future things. Can I please show me something that is going to be happening in the near future that I should be aware of? And then getting signs of panic and different fears and things playing out in life in that light, where it's like, oh, snaps, like there's something to it. And then
Hmm.
it started to develop into some crazy stuff where the dream's transition into waking state was seamless to the point where I'm like, oh no. Like,
What?
so this was the one that got me. So it was an intense, like it was almost like a celebration. And there's been a few dreams leading up to like where we're at now, where it was like prepping for war, like some type of battle.
Hmm.
And there was all of a sudden like these accomplishments and victories. And one of them was just trying um to like console everyone and be like, yeah, it's okay. And then doing like some high fives and celebrations and like a toast. And like when the glass comes down, it's just like I awaken in bed.
Damn.
And the ones that are the really crazy one is there was one recently, it was probably a few weeks, like let's say like 2.5 weeks ago. And it was me asking again for future. I was like, can I know something that I may not be aware of, and let me know something from the future that like will really help me like be present in it. And it was in the middle of like this warehouse. People were panicking. It was a lot of fear. It almost felt like a grocery store
Oh.
because the shelf, like people were going to like shelves and there was like nothing in shelves. And it was essentially like myself was illuminated, but it was in a bunch of darkness. And there was like other lights that were starting to like pop up and shine. And then everyone was getting brighter. But then it was just like seeing everyone panicking. I was just like, hey, everyone just relax. And then I was going to look at a fight because some people were like getting crazy. I was like, no, it's okay. And when I did this, I had turned in my bed and woke up. It was just like, just like,
Wow.
where am I? So that was probably like the trippiest one of late. But when you do start to live in the recognition of, I guess you would say, like just the ethereal nature of just like this world and experience, like that is a danger, is that you can get caught up in that kind of dissociated state where it's like you're living almost in, with one foot in each doorway.
Mm.
And I just recommend people ground for that.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, dude. You can't ascend if you're not. If you, I will say this: you should never try to ascend if you haven't mastered grounding.
I like that. Need a balance.
100%, because we're in the physicality. Like, there's no point of dropping this body and letting it veg out. Like, there's zero point of that. You're here to. This is the playground of experience. Like,
Mm.
it's kind of a pivotal tool in our
It is.
arsenal of exploration.
Yeah, for sure. It is the tool. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, you can go to these ecstatic states. You can go to the intentional dreaming, become one with God, but ultimately, you have to take care of your body because this is the vessel in which we tap in. So if you
100%.
intentionally live and ground yourself, I mean, what are your grounding techniques? Like, how would you say somebody's just really far out and you're like, hey, man, you gotta tone it down a little bit. Like, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would say get your feet in a river and just
Oh,
put
like
your
literally
feet just,
grounding. Mm,
yeah, literally grounding, physically grounding. Like, go,
mm,
well, specifically if there's someone's that far out, I would say river. Get your feet in the riverbed, like stones on top of your feet, like dig in it like knee deep, and
mm,
let it just wash all those concepts you're holding on to away.
mm. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's all, honestly, it's powerful. And I've actually learned this from a man named Joselito Castillo, and he assisted in the Building Brotherhood event that I was talking about. He did
Mm,
the energetic cleansing and ceremonies, and there was something I learned from him, and the importance of using, the different aspects of nature to help you physically and energetically. So, in part of his cleansing ritual, and tops of like resins and different brushes, like leaves that he's like stacked, and fanning off of you, like he does this part where he like sprays you down and does like the leaves, and when you're done it's just like, oh my god, I feel great. Like, he's like,
mm.
you're gonna feel something release, and then he's like, huh, huh. And everyone that was at the event was just like, came up to me and specifically said something like about him in their experience, of just being like, dude, I've never experienced something like that, where I was like, yo, what was in the spray? And he was like, river water.
Wow.
And it's something about just like, because river water is always changing and flowing. He's like, so when I was tapping
Oh,
in with nature and spirit, it was guiding me to use river water
damn.
because of just the natural properties that it
The
carries. That it's,
vibration of that water is
yes,
different.
It's
Wow.
change. It's always change. So
Yeah.
it's intended to take things away and keep them going downstream. So there's
That's
different
good.
aspects to people, and exactly, and it resonates with you on that deeper level because you get it, you know it. You're like, oh, yep, I totally understand this because
Mm,
there's a different layer to just how life operates. And when you live intentionally, you start to align yourself with this natural form
mm.
of just really operation. And it's that union that I feel like we had that we got so
Yeah.
detached from throughout just, all the different corporations and oligarchies and, this is the general corruption of man. But it's like getting back into the point of, for me, grounding, just getting my feet in the dirt, hand on a tree, forehead on a tree, and then I'll do like my solfeggio tuning forks and
Mm,
just like tune up. And it's literally just, I just see that as like, just as I tune my guitar,
yeah.
it's no different. And I think
Hmm.
that's one of the things that's really lacking is just that recognition of the feedback that is the body. Because again, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and give so much credence to consciousness because without the body, consciousness has no vessel.
Mm,
Ultimately, they're both important. You can't have
hmm.
either. You have to have both in order to be the human being. And
Exactly.
that's again the enlightenment awakening, when you really wake up, that you just don't put one on the pedestal, you see each as the divine nature they are. Life starts to balance and be a little bit more harmonious. And part of it again comes back to that physical attunement. So just getting your feet in the dirt, in the sand, in the river, like in the ocean, just anything. Like,
Nature.
yeah, I did a cold plunge on Valentine's Day. And
Oh
I was
yeah.
just like, yeah. And I was just like, dude, yeah, this is a new thing. We're doing this. I like this.
Yeah.
And it was
That'll
just such
ground you.
a, oh man, you also forget how to breathe for a second. You realize that's super important.
Hmm. What'd you do? Like just plunge yourself in a cold river or lake or something?
Yeah, we got a lake, like Lake Washington right near me. And I was just like, yeah, it's like 4 minutes away. Let's go.
Hmm.
Like, drove down there and just like walked in, and it's like got to waist deep. It's like, are we about to go under? It's like, I mean, we're out here, so let's do it. And then go underneath, come back. And then instantly when you get back out, it's like maybe 30 seconds, completely warm,
Mm,
like just radiating, and just the energy that's just changed like at a snap of a finger.
hmm.
That's the stuff that the utilizing nature is, again, I feel is the most important thing moving forward. And in this process of self-love, because again, there's no distinction, there's no difference.
Yep.
We are of earth, we are Mother Gaia. Like, why are we not utilizing her? She wants
Yeah.
us to heal just as much as we want to heal.
Hmm.
And it's our process of coming back home that really, I would say, is the collective evolution and one of the necessary steps. Just that reverence of life, reverence for your home. Like,
Mm,
how many people, I guess that's one of the things that's been really interesting for me is with my development of like the intangible, like spirit, working with my ancestors and like my guardians and guides I know are always there. Like, you can feel the energies when you're aware to the subtleties of them, right?
yeah.
And one of that intentional aspects is really just giving reverence to life again,
Yep.
like the power of waking up in gratitude. And as I like to say, gratitude through action is praise. Like, living a
Mm,
life of praise
yeah.
is, to me, is so important because, if I have some scraps, I won't throw them in the compost. I'll just go throw them out in nature and say, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, here's for like some of the squirrels or the birds, something of that nature. Or, oh, I'm not going to throw these seeds out. I'll go plant them and see if they grow. Like, those types of things, just giving back to life and being like, here's a gift.
Yeah. Just because.
And even making something just to give back to life.
Mm,
Like, that was something that was incredibly powerful just from the sacred circle ceremony, is that I made a little loaf of bread and like pretty much just like gave the food back to spirit. It was just
yeah.
like, hey, like, I'm gonna eat this apple and I'm gonna rip off some of this bread and give it to someone because they're hungry, but like, I'll give you the rest of this. And just like to know that you're giving back to the full wheel and circle of life is just something where you're doing it consciously. It's like a mitzvah, it's like a daily good deed. And
Hmm.
it's just that kind of natural harmony that brings you back into that pure recognition of where we come from. It's the
Yep.
humbling experiences I'd say are always the most powerful, like once you really start tapping into spirituality.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know how to look at them with the right viewpoint, yeah, the simple experiences to connect with something that we lost. And you're right, man. It's something that we lost. Being generous and being with the earth and being generous to the earth.
Mm,
We are totally not on that paradigm, but I think we were at one point. I think at one
Yeah.
point there was a golden age of humanity. I don't know why, but I feel like there's
Mm,
this longing for a time past where we had it figured out. Like we were aligned with how the Dharma, how to live. We were. And there's a longing to return to that. And I think that's what's happening right now. We built
mm,
up this crazy world of ego, but it's slowly, well, actually not slowly, I think it's actually happening pretty fast. It's collapsing as we speak, like in this moment. It's not working anymore. There's a collective
mm.
ego death going on, and we're showing ourselves how to truly live. And how to
Yeah.
truly live is definitely 100% more in accordance with the earth, because it's us. That is us.
Yeah. 100%.
Can't neglect a part of yourself, a part of your being. Most people
Yeah.
don't go to nature. Most people don't
Oof.
know. Think about the majority of, I don't know, where do you live again?
Seattle.
Seattle. Do you live like in Seattle? Like,
Yeah. I live
how
in the
much
city.
nature do you naturally see on a day-to-day basis, right? If you don't,
Gratefully, a little bit because of the certain structure of the city. But if you're living, I know kids that have never seen stars,
wow, that's powerful.
or they've never seen the Milky Way. They've only seen like the generic, like Orion's belt. Is that the Dipper? Is that the
Damn.
North Star? Because of the
Yeah.
light pollution.
So what I'm trying to say is the majority of the population of the world has no access to nature, or at
Yeah.
least we have access and we don't take advantage of it, right?
There's no
So
appreciation.
yeah. So when we neglect that and we live in these concrete jungles our whole life, we're neglecting a part of our being. And it's not a
Mm,
part of our being that should be neglected. It's where we are the earth, like I said. So if you do that, you're just cutting off a sense of security, that sense of grounding. I agree,
mm,
man. Like 100%, it comes from just simply just being with the earth, like being out in nature for a little bit, and you realize, ah, I'm a part of this whole thing. I am this whole thing. And
yeah.
that is grounding right there. When you
Mm,
see yourself as the process of nature and as the river flowing, we're just flowing down the river of life. And you associate yourself with that vibration, because I think it all comes down to vibration. Everything has
yeah.
a vibration, right? Like every
Mm,
single object has a certain kind of tuning to it. So if you tune yourself to the vibrations of nature, and of the earth, you realize that it's already part of the flow. There's nothing that has to be done. Like earth doesn't think, nature doesn't think. It's its own
yeah.
divine flow. So if
Yeah.
you associate yourself with the flow of earth, then just by being associated with it, by being close to it, by being in the river or on that ground, you slowly start to take on that vibration in your own being, and it does. It
Yeah.
feels so good. But
Right.
for some reason, you just have to get out there, man. You
Just
just
wash
have to do
away.
it.
You
Hmm.
wash away the stagnant energies. And I challenge anyone who questions this point that you just made, honestly, in terms of just that noticeable shift.
Yeah.
Just go do it yourself. Like,
Hmm.
go spend like a week in the city. If you live in the city, go just dip out, go to the mountains,
Hmm.
middle of nowhere, no cell service, turn your phone off. Just go sit in nature for a little bit, get your feet in the dirt, go get your hands in the river, whatever it is. Like, that is a noticeable feeling that
Yeah.
and again, like, science is just catching up to what we've known for super long, because they're able to quantify these aspects of what changes, like the physiological adjustments of the body that arise when you ground. Like, your circulation changes, your actual like bioelectricity or your aura, your magnetism starts to change.
Yeah.
Your face starts to get flushed like you're giving someone a hug. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Hmm.
so many things that just like are legit facts of just the importance of this type of intentional living with earth again.
Hmm.
And it just comes back to just loving yourself, because if we look at it in the truest form of it, we could probably see it as like us not being in tune with nature is starving out, you would say, like, our energetic potential. Like, it's
Yeah.
literally stifling what we can perceive, because when we're in those states of jubilation, when we're in those states of just all the chemicals that get released from being with earth like that, again, that's just fuel for the body to be like, yeah, let's go explore and navigate and adventure. Like, we're literally missing out on our own drug rush.
Mm,
You're missing out on an energetic rush. You're missing out on the actual energetic cleanse that happens
yeah.
of Earth taking that energy back, and I guess you would say taking the negative energy back and recycling it, and you can just get refilled up with more love and light.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, this just comes back to us just not understanding our position in the play,
Yep.
not understanding the tools that this body is. So it's like, it'd be funny. We're about to go 65% of the problems here. So it's like, imagine if we had PE, that instead of some type of physical education in terms of like, let's go run a lap and do some push-ups and sit-ups, folks, play some dodgeball. It's like, all right, guys, you have this body. It has a skeleton and it has muscles. These are like levers and pulleys. This is how you can heal yourself if you have an injury. This is really how you can utilize your emotions as fuel to overcome fear. Imagine if we had this recognition that it was also like, and just as much as you can use technology to check your bones, you should be using nature to heal you.
Yeah.
Getting out in the water, grounding, teaching kids how to breathe, how to
Mm.
practice some pranayama while they're sitting here grounding with a tree. Like, okay,
Right.
let's take this another step further.
Yeah.
So, what happens when more people start to have the actual intangible connection with nature again? That they can hear trees like they can hear people, like they can feel pain from Mother Earth, like you can feel pain when you have a cut.
Mm.
Like that's another type of intimacy that people just aren't even opening themselves up to because they feel like that's not a possibility. But
Mm-hmm.
again, challenge anyone is go ground with a tree. I have a tree that I've been grounding with for like 5 years strong now.
Wow.
And me and the tree are like this, and it's like, but the thing is, it brings you back into those intangible realms where I was very grateful, and I'm just highlighting it again because it's one of those aspects of the new future that we're building. But it's like this building brotherhood event, being able to hold sacred space with a bunch of guys who are tapped in and really explore like consciousness like this, like how we have conversations, and
Yeah.
just have a group of 10 different people that are just completely different parts of the city, from like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like to have that experience of just like sharing knowledge. It brings me right back to that point of sharing knowledge with the tree.
Mm.
No different. Asking a question and simply receiving an answer and just listening, and being perceptive and open. Like all these things are changing more and more where the perception of people is starting to open up. And without these tools, it can get really crazy and chaotic, like
Mm-hmm.
you talked about it earlier. It's like people who are really out there, it's because they've gone so far up, yet they did nothing to anchor themselves down. Like we're going to have a really interesting society if people don't come back to earth, because
Yeah.
it's going
Absolutely.
to be a lot of dissociation or dissociative events where a lot of those mental snaps happen,
Mm.
and vice versa. Those that refuse to address the changes and things that get revealed, their same attachment onto the old, it'll create a same mental snap. But the way to alleviate all the tensions, we could say, is just come back home to nature.
Mm-hmm.
Love yourself, love nature. It's one and the same.
Yeah. Amen, man. Come back home.
Isn't
That's
that
good.
ain't that the truth? That's the whole reason why we're in this whole game, right? Come back home.
Yeah. Right. Lost our
Hmm,
way, but we're all walking each other home, as Ram Dass says.
I like that. It's beautiful.
Even
Man of many words.
yeah, even the people that aren't on tapped in, quote unquote, they're not on that wavelength. They're still on that wavelength.
Yep,
Even if you're not aware that you're tapped in, we're all tapped in. But it starts with the awareness. And
100%.
with the awareness comes everything we just spoke about in the last hour. That's the first step, is the awareness that we're tapped in. Because no matter what, we're always connected. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful to know that we're always connected to this oneness, to the ultimate, to this infinite flow that we're caught in. We're always connected, and we are the flow. That's the thing.
Yeah.
We're not just connected. That's the thing about language, man. Is like once you put something into words, it automatically takes away from that truth.
Oh,
Anything like, which is
yeah.
ironic because that's what we're doing right now. We're talking, but hey, just keep going with the game, right? When you put things into concepts, it automatically takes away from the entire essence that we're speaking about. And I mean, I know what you're
Mm,
saying 100%. You know what I'm saying 100%, but ultimately we know what we're saying. We both know what we're saying because we've gone through it ourselves. And
yeah,
I think we've said this before. You have to do it yourself. And no book is
yeah.
going to do it. No podcast is going to do it. Your mom and your dad aren't going to do it. Only yourself is going to be able to find the undying self. That is the truth. That's it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about that, to be honest. It's all up to us.
Yeah. Well, I guess the one point that just kind of calls out to me to speak on, at least, is being okay with other people that just aren't about it. I
Yeah.
think that's probably the biggest. I would almost say it's probably just the double-edged sword of compassion, right? That you
Mm-hmm.
just naturally stumble into in this
Mm-hmm.
realm. Because it's like when you want to scream from the mountaintops, you just want everyone to strive and just live that love and freedom. And
Mm-hmm.
the issue is, again, it's that free will. Like, people have to want it. And to recognize that just as much as we all lived our own chaos till we got to these points of recognition that everyone's doing that themselves, you just have to
Yeah,
just kind of just live life at a distance.
exactly, dude.
I guess that's the process of indifference. The what they
Mm.
speak about in the Vedas is really just, it's not judging. It's not living in any assumption or expectation. It's just allowing everything to be, and just to
Mm-hmm.
remember that that's just the divine timing of it all.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
perfect.
Ooh, ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow.
It really is, right? Like, how do you say that genocide and war and sickness and suffering, it's all part of it. It's all perfect. It's all God. That is God as well. If everything is this one flow and the ultimate, then so are even the nasty parts
Yeah.
are God. Like, how do you, because I feel like that's one huge critique of God. People will say, well, if God exists, why does he allow child cancer? Why does he allow people to die of starvation? The list goes on of horrible things.
Yeah.
How does a God let that happen? Well, God lets that happen. I don't know, actually. I would say
I like
I
that.
don't know why God lets that happen, but I would say it's more so of it has to do with multiple lifetimes and reaping our karma and things that we did, cause and effects over multiple lifetimes.
Mm,
And it's all to show us that any kind of suffering that we go through, it's not real. No matter what, no matter how bad
yeah.
and dire it gets, it's not real. It doesn't hold any substance. It's all temporary. No matter
Yeah.
what happens, you could be in the most dire situation. You could be in the most dire, dark incarnation here. But no matter what, it's always going to come to pass. All of our suffering,
Ooh.
all of our darkness will always, no matter what, come to pass. And it's within our own free will to find that. And
Yeah.
until you find that, life is going to keep throwing you stuff. It's going to keep making you go through suffering. And sometimes it may be very dire suffering that you might not even get in one lifetime. It might be in the next lifetime or the next one after that or the millions after that. But there's going to be one instance in all of our lifetimes, which is really just essentially one lifetime. When we get through all of our samskaras, when we get through all of our stuff, we get through all the wars and just the ugliness of our past, and we have to reap this karma. When we get through that, that's when we awaken to that it was always good all along. It was
Right.
it was
It was
always
our own
part of this
creation.
process. It was our own we did this to ourselves. We're like, well, how how did that happen? How did we, like,
Collective
like,
consciousness.
exactly, once you resonate on collective consciousness, you can see how, childhood cancer is just part of the karma that we have to reap, and it's just another lesson. And it's horrible
Yeah.
to say, but all of the darkness is of our own accord, and it's because we have
Yeah.
free will. If we didn't have free
Yes.
will, none of
Yeah.
this would have happened. Like, this is how I would justify it. God loves us so much that he gave us enough free will to really mess ourselves up and mess up the situation. But if he didn't give us free will, then he
We
doesn't
could
really
never.
love us in a way.
Yeah.
Like, we could never have
Yeah.
the ability to find
Yes.
that essence.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love it.
Like we need to be able to fuck up in order to realize
100%.
what's real. And we fuck
Yeah.
up over lifetimes. It takes lifetimes. And that's when you're getting really far out in this whole thing, man. And you start to
Yeah.
justify the whole how you justify the whole process, the good and the ugly, is that it's just our own creation. Like you said, it's our own collective creation until we all
Yeah.
tap in. That's why until we all tap in, we get on this wavelength, it's going to keep happening. That's karma.
Yeah.
It keeps happening. And the lessons keep being brought up. And now we're seeing in this time of our Lord, in 2022, we're seeing all of our lessons being broadcast to us on our phones,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's all
Everything.
just lessons, all from different lifetimes. We're reaping all of this karma collectively now, and we get to see it. Very crazy time to be alive.
Oh,
And
beautiful. It's
yeah.
beautiful. Well, then again, it says, how do we grow? We grow through conflict. It
Hmm.
doesn't always need to be combative. That's the thing that we can grow out of. But I think that this aspect of tension and relaxation, contraction and release,
That's the
like all
flow.
of that stuff is so, again, it's like breathing, as above, so below. And it's that concept. I love how you said it, like nail on the head with the free will, because I like to akin it as to, you know, when a parent loves their child and they want them to walk, do they hold their hand? No, they let them
Mm,
fall.
yeah.
It's like it's that same aspect of like we have to learn these tough lessons, because I can only answer this based off of my own experience. But I came into such more gratitude of what this gift of life is through all of the bullshit and the
Yep.
suffering and the pain. And if
Hmm.
I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have wanted to escape from anything.
Amen.
I wouldn't have had that catalyst to look for something else, to look for
Yes.
something more. And that's the aspect of it. Actually brings a point back you said earlier, where it's just like, these ancient civilizations, like they clearly knew something.
Hmm.
And it comes back into the timeline, I think, of where we're at as a society. Again, we want to say as above, so below. Maybe this is just the collective aspect so everybody could make it, not
Hmm.
just a collective, not just the select few who would rule societies, but everyone could be tapped in consciously. There is no more exclusivity of who gets to know divine knowledge. We all have it, you know,
Hmm.
in our fingertips. We can listen to this. We could tap in with other people from across the world, and that's just a commoner thing. Like more people have smartphones nowadays, and more people have food. Like ridiculousness, but that's a fact of our civilization,
Yeah.
like, and the things where we take this to the next level is when we're looking at the aspect of as above, so below, you could see it as these old generations, like, yeah, they were probably just more spiritually tapped in, and that's just the pureness they lived in as infants, you know. But as we grew up, we kind of went through this rebellious teenage years, and I think that's what we're experiencing now, is this transition of the ending of youth and adolescence into adulthood.
Yeah.
And it's like that medicine wheel. It's that we're coming back around,
Hmm.
where we're coming into this divine spiritual recognition, going through this mass, like collective, just detachment phase or ego death, or however you want to phrase it. But like
Yeah.
we're entering into this realm now where more and more people are going to be forcibly awakened. And it arises through this recognition that this is just how it has to be right now. Like, because you
Mm.
have to look at it in the collective
Surrender.
you have to look at it in the collective process of it, and it's just like, okay, so what's the real difference between adolescence and adulthood? Like, where's the real shift to being an adult? It's
Mm.
accountability.
Ooh.
It's personal responsibility and personal sovereignty. And I
Yeah.
think that's the ultimately aspect of, freedom and liberation and rights, and all these things are all these really core tenets to what it means to really live a free life here, in this world. All that stuff is coming to the surface. All the corrupt aspects of people in power and institutions poisoning the earth and people, like all this stuff is just coming to the forefront,
Yep.
where it's this massive pivot point where it's like, okay, folks, are we going to choose a world that's based in truth, we could say with a capital T, or all the bullshit lies of comfort that we keep telling ourselves,
Yeah.
because we have a really cool opportunity here. And again, that's why I see it as if everyone actually knew their real divine position, it's like, dude, we're all royalty going through this right now. Like everyone incarnation right now. And you mentioned it previously in some conversations where it's like, even those who chose to opt out,
Yeah.
during this
Mm.
time, have chosen the role of the the kind of instigator of the sacrificial lamb, as you stated, and
Yep.
like, but like the catalyst that is just like, hey, like, how do we learn? How do we grow? What is spiritual fuel? Suffering. What is the most intense things that we learn from? It's the pain,
Mm.
and that's the free will aspect, because it's like we've seen the sociopathic behaviors that just comes from children who get coddled. They literally turn into sociopaths because their empathy gets switched off and they don't see people as people, and it's just a game of me, myself, and I. And we're ending that aspect of our society, and it's
Yeah.
coming back to that recognition that it's like it's not just you in this game. It's that divine recognition of each being. And again, it's just really, if you want to summarize this in one word, it's just love. It's
Always
just a
comes back to
system.
love.
That's all there is. That's all there can be, bro.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, dude, Rusty and I just had we had an epic, like, I don't know if we aired all of it, but we had an epic, like, 3-hour talk on love.
Yeah, I saw
It
that.
just,
I haven't watched it yet, but I did see that you uploaded that, so I'm excited to watch.
dude, it gets there. It gets there because it goes to this point of just like, everything in this universe is love.
Yeah.
Everything is love. From love comes everything else.
Mm.
That's where it's like, it's when we come back home to the pureness, that's all that's there. And that's the jubilation, the joy, the elation, the bliss, that people talk about. It's just an overwhelming abundance of love.
Hmm.
And then it just radiates from us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we receive. We radiate from it. We can receive it, but when we radiate it, you operate like a star.
Mm-hmm.
Life just starts to change of how it operates around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking about that recently. Why not love? Why not be love? What's the worst that's going to happen?
Love it.
This is the story. Your life is the story of how you can love through suffering. Like how you can
Mm,
truly be the best version of yourself to love others and yourself in the midst of just calamity, man. In the midst of Maya, right? Your life right now, you're incarnated, the listener, you, me, we're all in this to be love. It really is that simple, man. If we can all just resonate at love. It sounds crazy. It sounds like some hippie talk. Like, what are you talking about, man? Be realistic. That is realistic. That is the real. This is the real.
ooh,
It's love, man. And we've neglected that as well. But it's
yeah,
like like you said, there's some people incarnated that just aren't going to be on that wavelength in this lifetime. For what reason? I guess it's to show us how not to be. You can't have the light without the dark. How would we
exactly.
know how to be if there is just not how? I mean, if I don't know, how would we know how to be if we didn't know how not to be?
Exactly. You have to have contrast. That's the beauty of this life, is dualities, right?
Yeah.
You have to experience the duality to recognize that you can transcend it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately what I like to point as in terms of just awakening on the spiritual level as a man and a woman. It's just like, to really master the self, you have to master the dual first.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, I think that's just a natural process of just the natural alignments of energies that shift, the things that open up, the things that dial down, when you go in this process. Because for men, and like, again, we can talk about it from a physical standpoint, like we practice stillness and just meditation. Like that is our powerful form of meditation, because it connects the left and the right hemisphere, because we're
Yep.
forward and we're frontal and rear and posterior, like lobe, I guess you'd say, oriented. And women, it's the exact opposite.
Oh,
They have
really?
to act. Yeah, women have to act because they're more naturally left and right wired. So for them to get the front and back like us, they have to live out their meditation through action. They have to do those things that create the joy, the expression.
To
And this
wire
is,
this way?
yeah, because and for us to wire this way, we have to be still. We have to calm the mind. And this is where you can start looking at, again, this mass experiment that we're in terms of men and women in the same workforce. It's just like, dude, for centuries, like for pretty much what we know is our entire existence, women had entirely different culture and community than men had.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the reason why I think like sacred gatherings, because I've helped with some sacred gatherings for women and sacred circles for them. And that's like powerful manifestation work that they're doing. But it's just like, what are they doing? Getting community, acting. Theirs aren't really as focused as much as meditation as it is just like different like sharing exercises and, and just expressing themselves and exploring things like from the communal aspect. But like for guys, it was a very different experience. Like the energy was way different. I'm like, yo, this is the old school shit that like we need to be doing now. And that's like, again, where I mean, like we're creating the new path because we have to, these ways of the old haven't been done in any real method or way that we know. We have all these smaller tribes that have like kind of still stayed tapped into this, but even that is limited by, I would say, the times. It's like we're entering this really cool opportunity where each of us can explore consciousness, can explore the physical experience, can explore all the intangible stuff in between on such an in-depth level than never once experienced before because we can share it.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah,
You
anywhere. And
know,
locality doesn't mean anything.
exactly. It's we
Mm.
can transcend it fully, before we actually learn how to transcend it in the physical being. We can
Mm.
transcend it in the meantime with these little, like, I guess you'd say little hacks, little
Yeah.
cheat codes. We call it technology. But yeah, dude, because it's like it brings us back to that point where it's just like when you recognize that like the process of ascension or awakening unfoldment is different per sex and like whatever you're geared with, it starts to change the way you can approach even your own practice and how you build your own truth. Because again, it's always about building your own truth. And I feel like that is its own challenge, obviously. But again, it just comes back to self-love. Self-love, love is everything, man. I don't know. It's again, it sounds super hippie and cliche, but like the more you understand love, the more you understand yourself
Yep.
and the many expressions of it. And even just how you said be love, I laughed when you said it initially because one of the mantras that have been my kind of like New Year's resolution was live love.
Mm.
That's it. Live love.
I like that.
So what am I going to do for myself? I'm going to do things that I like. Like, oh, I want to have, I want my apartment to smell nice. I'm going to light a candle.
Mm.
I want to play music right now and don't want to do my desk work. I'm going to play music right now. And then when I'm done playing music, I feel great that I'm like, cool, I'm jazzed to do my desk work. Like I'm going to allow my intuition and my heart to guide my life
Yep.
and to no longer do things that don't serve it. When it's like when I have, for example, I was in a conversation with someone at a meeting and they were instantly getting very like combative in their language and like argumentative. And, when they were making a statement, it was just like, yeah, I hear you. Okay. And for them, it was just like, are you even present? Are you even listening? And I was just like, please don't assume my perspective because I'm not giving you an answer that you see as appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I clapped back a little bit and was just like, what do you want me to fucking talk to you like this? Do I have to be a little bit more stern and aggressive about it?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yes. And then I just started laughing. It was just like, that's just not me. I was like, I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to go back to that level of
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to get out of this situation. I was like, I'm not here for a fight.
Mm.
And that to
Mm-hmm.
me was just like such a subtle thing that clearly went over their head as the conversation continued to go. But like, it was one of those things where it was just like, dude, some people truly are always on that warring path
Mm-hmm.
that they're always looking for the enemy outside
Yep.
rather than looking within. And until we come to that point of living love fully, we always have that temptation to fall into those types of egoic traps of people baiting with their ego, being like, is your ego going to feed when my ego's feeding? Are we going to
Mm-hmm.
exchange some ego food? You know?
The game of
And
ego. Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing for myself is even like in that situation, when it got to that point, I think within like a minute or two, I was like, I left that entire situation and was just like, and we're done now,
Yeah.
because for me, it's just like the live love is your personal authority and respect. It's like, are you going to tolerate people to actually disrespect you? And it doesn't need to be combative. It can be tactful and compassionate and loving,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just as simple as please don't speak to me like that. Like,
Mm.
I don't appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and leave the situation now.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
just being straight up and straightforward, like living love is so many different aspects of love. That's why I find it is like probably the most frustrating thing to practice because are you going to be about it all the time?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Oh
the
yeah.
sadhana, man. To be able to be at love. Like I understand. That's kind of where I'm at too. It's like it's obviously, like you said, easier said than done to be able to do that, to live love. But that's a great great aspiration, right? To live love. Why not be love? What are you gonna outlove somebody?
Hmm.
You know?
That's such a funny way to say that shit.
What's the
I
worst that
love
can
it.
happen?
But you know, someone's mind was like that. Oh, I have to love more than anyone else.
That's
I
another
have to love
trap.
the best.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
no, it doesn't work
self-righteous
like that.
path.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're gonna be competitive, it's be competitive with love, but still it's you're doing yourself a disservice. Because when you truly live love, I feel like you just kind of you flow. There's no thinking, there's no you and me, there's no competition. You can see through the silly games of the ego. It's so easy to see through this stuff, man.
You
Once you're
feel it
living,
too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You
It's like a
feel it.
different sensory perception opens up.
It feels dark, like it feels low, it feels like thick. It's like, ooh,
Yeah,
it feels
thick.
gross. It's like, ooh, what do you
Exactly what you're
like?
talking about.
I'm not about that anymore. You know, I'm just like you said, I'm just gonna go the other way, man. We can stop this conversation. It's so easy to see through, right? It's just like once you live love, which I really like, I would wear that on a shirt. If you put that on a shirt, live love. Like I feel like
I
it's a
got you.
brand.
I got you. I got you. Say no more. I
All
got
right.
you.
So
Some
once you
FSP
start,
merch.
honestly, once you start living love, it's like so easy to see through all the illusions of the old ways. Because that's what the ego is, man. It's the old ways. It's the old world. We're moving toward a new paradigm, a whole new way of living. And once you get on that paradigm, it's so easy to see through this old, stagnant, thick paradigm that most are still under the spell of. But that's why it's our job to for everybody to that is on that wavelength to resonate there so others
Yeah.
can maybe learn. Doesn't mean they're always going to learn from you, but potentially, you know, that person that you didn't combat with will be like, wait, what was it with that Peter guy? Why did he want to fight with me? What was it? They'll ask
Right.
the question. At least you might not be able to like heal somebody from love, but at least the potential is there. And that's what love opens up. It opens up the potential because it's a two-way
Yeah.
street. It's like I can love you, but if your door is not open, if you're not open to the light, and that's
Yeah.
okay if you're not. We're all at different stages, but if you're not open to that light and you don't want to see through the roles that we are, that's your loss, man. And then it's not gonna hit you. Like my love isn't gonna hit you. But the on the
Right.
other side of the coin, if I find somebody that is on that wavelength and will open up to my love and I'm open up to their love, we open each other's doors, we're authentic, you know, we're a little vulnerable, then that's when the magic happens. You know, that's when you can have an almost 2 hour conversation with somebody over the internet or anybody in your life. You can truly tap in with somebody. You can truly
Yeah.
be there in that moment with
Mm.
somebody because that's what love is, right? If we're all love,
It's
fundamentally,
open.
it's openness in the moment.
Yeah.
It's circumstantial. It depends what's happening. You know, love is a constant, but it's also
It's dynamic.
it's dynamic. That's yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. It's constant, but also dynamic depending upon the situation and the circumstances that's happening. But no matter the circumstances, whatever's happening in the illusion of matter, you can always dwell in the constant of
Mm.
love. That's the beauty of it. No matter what happens in this crazy conundrum we call life, there's always the backdrop of love that is always, no matter what, no
Yeah.
matter what. Once you tap in, you realize it's always there for us.
Mm.
And it's not only there for us, it is us.
Yes. Yes, dude. Just mic drop. Just because it's so effortless when you hear something that's spoken and it carries such weight like that. To me, it brings so true to the point of just how easy it is to always come home when we
Mm,
really get it. When we really get it, all it takes is a breath.
yeah.
And that's the power of the liberation, quote unquote, is that it's like, okay, you can't unsee, you've seen it, you
Mm,
know? So it's like it's always gonna be there. And just for the listeners to think that this is just some, hippie shit that, how can you say this and this? Well, what if you did this? It's like my father actually passed away the morning of September 11th this
damn.
year.
Wow.
And
R.I.P.
it was, yeah, and it was one of those things where it's like we all knew something was coming. And this is actually, again, validation for Dream School, because Dream School helped me process all this before the death. and like just life, divine synchronicity, seeing the different people that had come into my life. I had met one person who had lost their father, another who had lost their mother, and then another who had lost both parents, like within weeks of meeting each other, or within me meeting them, within like I think 2.5 weeks, met all three. And it was just like, I get it. Because I was questioning. I was just like, is he, I was like, because the dream that I had was just like essentially me on his, like me next to him on his deathbed. And we were just like yelling at each other.
Mm.
And I woke up and was just like, I had this just terrible feeling in my heart. It was just like, ugh, I don't want that at all. And then like a few weeks later, my dad started to get sick. And it was just like, what the fuck? You know? So then I was kind of questioning, like, what did I just dream? Like, what did I see? I was like, I don't want this to be that. And that's almost like, you know, all these different aspects of like tarot and different, you know, astrology and horoscopes is you can free will, you can pivot whatever the fuck you want. I had that dream and could have easily been like, well, if I'm interpreting the dream, then it's this. It's like, no, like I interpreted, I experienced it. I knew what didn't feel good in my heart. And fast forward when this plays out, I ended up having an amazing talk with my dad. It was our last like heart to heart. And it was like closure. And like I left that car ride driving home and just like felt like something was different, but it didn't register until after he had passed what I experienced. Like it was just like the feeling in my heart was just like the feeling that that dream was trying to show me how it could be and how it like if it went down the other way, like I could have taken the conversation that way. And there was 3 different points where there was resistances on my dad's part where like I could have clapped back and been super like, well, fuck you then. Like, you know, but went with love, was just like, okay, why? You know, ask a question, you know, and then again, the conversation unfolded beautifully to the point where it's just like, when he passed, it wasn't like a, oh my gosh, like my dad's gone. It was like that sadness, but then just being like the initial shock more so. And then when I was like feeling the sadness come up, I was like, I'm going to go meditate. And that was when I literally called in my dad and felt his energy and just like, and we all know people's energies when we're around them for our whole lives, like, but it felt cleaner. It didn't have that thickness that you said. I love that you said it too, but it was like, but it wasn't like
It's pure.
you could, exactly. It wasn't like the pain that he had been carrying. It wasn't as all, and it wasn't that the kind of fiery negativity that he would have sometimes. It was just like his pureness and his essence. And the way I receive different like downloads and information, and at least in this sense of like the intangible, like working with spirit, is it's a quick image. That's like when it comes in, I'll feel the energy and then I get a quick image. And then it's just like on the heart. It's just like, this is just shining. It's warm. It's loving and light. And it's connecting with that person's energy. And I was super like, obviously like at this point, I was just like, just dumbfounded. Like, what am I experiencing right now? And I just go like, are you okay? And I could just feel it. He's just like, I'm okay. And it was just like overwhelming warmth. And then I just started sobbing and just like come back to the reality and was just like, okay. But in my heart, I was like, he's okay. I know that. And it wasn't the first time that I've tapped in with him. It's definitely not the last, but like, you know, it's something that has happened numerous times to the point now where I actually had an experience with the woman, my girlfriend who I'm dating right now. And I didn't know how to tell it to her because I had gotten this image, you know, of this woman who like, I kind of like thought was like her mom who had passed away. And then it was just this, you know, on the hand, because I was just like internally like, oh shit, I know this feeling. This is someone's like, this is an energy, like this is a person, like, hi, like, I know I'm here with your daughter. Like, I'm not trying to like fuck around with her. I'm just, you know, I'm just like,
this was a vision you had?
we're meditating together in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just like, yeah, just it's all love on my end. Like I don't know like what the future holds with us, but I'm gonna treat her with love and respect. And she's like reaches on my arm and goes like, I know, baby. And I was just like, okay. And I was just like, that's interesting phrasing. So then like my mind is just like rattled. I'm like, what the fuck did I just experience? Because the image that I got, that glimpse, it was the same type of thing, like white robes, just like really just like peace loved, but there was a little bit of spice and fiery to like the energy. So I was just like, okay, like this is different. And I don't say anything to her after, like, on our walk, because I'm still trying to process, like, what did I just experience?
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I like straight up asked her, I was just like, hey, does this mean anything to you? And then like I grabbed her arm and was just like, I know, baby.
Ooh.
And just like the look she gave me was just like, she literally like distanced herself and looked a little scared. And she was like, why do you ask? And I was like, well, I just had a meditation experience and I think I met your mom. And like, well, I didn't front with that. I was just like, I had a meditation experience and I met a woman who had her haircut was like here, this and this. And I was just like, do those words mean anything to you? And she was like, those are the last words my mother said to me before she passed.
Damn.
And that was, again, like, to me, we
Damn.
bring it full circle. And we talk about what are some of the things you've been getting into. And when I say work with spirit, I think like ultimately that's the stuff that's been opening up more, is like just this wild stuff of that goes beyond what we know. And mind you, this is just like the intro. This is the first of many experiences that I've had, especially tandem with her mother and my father, but with my father specifically, like, and even with different clients and helping them tap in with their ancestors and relatives. Like, the veil is so thin. It's so much more thin than we believe. And in truth, we coexist, if that's a way I could phrase it, right? But we don't ask for assistance and guidance and help. But when we do, they'll show us. And that's been the most powerful thing for me, is, again, it comes back to this exploration of love, right? Okay, well, when we explore love, we fundamentally have to come back here first. What is the self? Who am I? What is this life? And then it gets us to this point of, okay, well, now we know here, we know what's kind of all around. So what is this? And then you kind of get to explore this playground and like the nature and modalities of the energies and the push and pull, the ebb and flow. Like, how do I vibe with life? How do I resonate in the heart? And then it comes to being like, okay, well, what's beyond this realm?
Yeah.
Like, because there's not just this, I guess you would say it's the perfect example. You got the Om on your shirt, right? We can break it down as like the AUM. The first loop is the waking state. The bottom loop's the dream state. Then you have the dreamless state. Then you have that veil, and then that dot right there, samadhi.
Dot.
Going beyond,
I like that.
Going beyond the veil and experiencing truth. Okay, so once you experience truth in the dot, you kind of have to explore each realm, as I see it, from this conscious perspective. Hey. There it is. We're done here, folks.
See you later, everybody. Gonna wrap it up.
I love it.
That's true, though. Yeah, once you realize it's all one, you realize that, yeah, there are other realms per se, but you can tap into those other realms, because even those other realms are still part of the ultimate oneness.
Exactly.
Which is, that's really far out.
And there's no distinction. Well, that's the thing, though, is like there's no distinction. So it comes back to the point of how we even got off on this tangent, where it's just like, when you really tap in, there's different avenues of this experience in which you can explore. And to make sure that people don't take lightly to what we're saying, where it really is all love. Like, use love is your greatest tool. Love is the greatest force. Love is everything.
Yep.
Like, I just don't say it as a concept. I've applied it. I live it. Live love. Like, I could have easily have seen my father's passing as something, as a why me. But even in this ultimate loss and death of losing a parent, of really, and again, I'm not dismissing and discrediting the feels. Oh, the feels have been felt, but the feelings were explored and understood that they weren't me, that it's just the residual pain and the loss and the expectations and the plans and all these things, the concepts, the illusory things that dropped away. But what truly has never faded is that love. The connection just changes. And for me to sit here and be like, well, that's a cool experience, is to just be ignorant to what I tapped into because of this. And it's just like, okay, well, I can really tap in and we can actually talk. Like, we can actually like It's not really complicated or long things, but it's when it's like, but with a simple question, you get the answer. And to
Yeah.
be able to have that and to be able to observe the energetic subtleties that open up and continue to open up with the practice, it's like, dude, life is fucking dope. Like, there's so much more that we can experience than what we can even conceive. I would never have thought last year, like going into all this crazy shit that it's like post divorce, my father passing, coming and goings of a bunch of different people that have dropped away due to their own ish, like to see how much beauty and love is just radiating and just coming in and going from this experience. It's like, whoa, it truly is breathtaking, because there's been so many magical moments that life has really blessed me with that I'm grateful for, because it's been those validating reminders that it's like, hey, it's okay. You'll be through this. And it's funny too enough that our talk, again, this just goes to show the power of just simple conversation. Our talk a while ago, it was your original scapegoat statement of just like the sacrificial lambs, or just like there's a great honor in being the sacrificial lamb. That whole aspect helped me facilitate even how I approached passing in my own family, of trying to help facilitate and point people towards a direction of healing, of introspection versus ruminating in the past.
Yeah.
Putting it to a point for healing. And so again, pivoting it and just applying some love, putting that love in there and just planting those seeds and just being okay with whatever comes from it, not having any expectation, that openness that love is, right? And that's the essence of what really is a testament to living out that trust in life and that knowing. And that is, again, the liberation, because it's like it frees you from all the doubt. It frees you from all the fear and the uncertainty, just to know that it's like, yeah, I may not know what the hell is going on in this moment, and it's being really chaotically and experienced, but I know what works. I know the truth. And through that, I'll just, hold up that light and let it guide me. Yeah. And it does. And it's like, man, every time it does it. It's just.
Yep. No fail. Love never fails, man.
It never fails. And again, it's cheesy as fuck, but like, what's the most loving thing that we can do in this world other than love ourselves and live out our most genuine life? I think that's really it. Like, if I had to, boil life down to anything, it's really just that process of recognition, realization, application, and discovery. And it's that. You got to check out that love talk, because I express it in a sense of like, there's a 1A and a 1B and a 2A and a 2B, and they just feed each other. So it's that, again, it's that process of, to figure out life, to really get it going. It's like, you have to figure out who we are. Okay. And we have to figure out what life is. And when we kind of discover into that, we then come into the 2A, 2B. Okay. Then when we discover is, well, what do we really want to do with it? How do we really want to be ourselves? And how can we give that back to the world? How can we present that gift to the rest of the species, the rest of humanity? And then through that discovery of service and literally just action and application, it feeds back into more self-discovery. And it's just this process that just kind of keeps feeding into itself, where it's like, dude, that's it. Again, like, life is hella simple.
It really
complicate
is.
The fuck out of it.
Yeah, it really is, man. That's so true. It's so simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple. There's a fine line.
Boom. Perfectly said. Perfectly said.
Damn.
Bro. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple.
Yeah, like meditation. Just the simple act of meditation. Most can't do it. Most say, like, if I say, I meditated for like 20 minutes, you'd be like, what? That's crazy.
I can't sit still for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It's the simplest, easiest thing simplest, hardest thing to do is to just be still, to do nothing.
Well, and that's, again, the misconceptions, right? It's just like, yo, we do it every night. Like, we overlook the subtleties of just like how the program is already set. Like, if we were to see certain acts as like almost like a video game where it has like a star next to it, where it's like, why does my bed have a gold star next to it? Like, because this is where you can figure some real shit out. Like, it's the subtleties of this experience that really do lead the curious out. Because again, like, how many times have, I think collectively between us have had just like a random situation or experience like turn into this deep ass pondering, like an introspection. Like I wrote a poem and gigged out on just like leaves falling from a tree, or just like waves crashing against the shore. And it's like,
Simple.
that's exactly just simple actions have brought me back to this point of just like dissolution. Like, oh my God, the wave hits the shore, yet the waves keep coming. What? Like, how is this any different than the drop of consciousness, which I am? Like,
That's true.
oh,
We
but
are
that's the
just
beauty of it.
drops in the
Well,
ocean.
that's the crazy aspect of it though, is like, you come home and you realize you never left. And then you're like, oh shit, okay, cool.
But it's weird, right? Because it was in our karma to come here, forget for a little bit, to realize that we never left.
Mm, mm.
Strange, right? Like we
But
had to forget in order to remember first.
I guess that's the question is, did we really appreciate it if we allowed ourselves to forget?
There it is. Yeah, exactly. Like we had to forget. We had to. That
Yeah.
was part of the plan. We all
Mm-hmm.
had to forget what we were because now we revere ourselves, which we forgot we were. We revere that remembrance even more so.
Yeah.
Like,
It's really, oh, I
pardon
love
me.
it.
But go ahead. What were you
I
gonna
love
say?
it. Well, I was going to say, I was like, it reminds me of a little sketch I drew akin to this thought. It was a little comic of a bunch of people, and like infinitely, you could just see it. It just got to the point where it's super tiny and small, but it was everyone has a door in front of them, each being. And like the little tagline on the bottom is just like the path to liberation or enlightenment or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like this eureka moment from the first panel of everyone trying to jingle this like keys. Like everyone just had like a bunch of keys. It was just this fat loop of infinite keys. And it has this highlight panel of like the person in the front being like, oh, and then they whisper to the proctor and then they walk through the door. And then in
Mm-hmm.
the final panel, the keys are on the ground.
Oh, wow, that's
It's
good.
because the door is always open. We just have to look within.
Yeah.
And we are the answer. And it comes
Mm.
back to that, like, who am I? Like, who are we? And that's the essence of this life is, that seemingly forgetfulness that we have to go through is like, it really is the ultimate test. Because if we're so caught up in the external, oof, you're never going to look in.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to look in. If you're so content with this life, like, you're never going to question it.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to go through that suffering. And maybe that's probably why we had to go through that ancestral like loss of different societies getting canceled out or wiped out or whatever the hell happened back then, but maybe they just didn't really appreciate this gift.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just
Oh,
turning
yeah.
into a path of abuse,
Damn. Yeah.
like a self-righteous path. Like we look at the Gunas, right? Maybe they went down the path of self-righteousness. Maybe they were doing good. And maybe that's the point of like, maybe it isn't just like love, just love. Like you have to actually understand love. And maybe
Ooh.
that's what this process of us going through this whole shit show of evolution, if you want to call it, is this process of really truly understanding what love is. What
Yeah.
is love?
It's it's not. It's an unfinished process.
Yeah.
Like yeah, dude. We're still getting there. The story is still being wrote, still being
Yeah.
written. Like we're
Oh,
not there.
100%.
Hmm.
And that's the beauty of where we're at right now, I feel, is because we're that generation that's causing the pivot. I feel like these incarnations, like these like 30, 40 years, like whatever group we're in, like we're the ones that are like, all right, we're turning this shit. And I think honestly, like with how things have played out, we've already done it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's a fundamental difference between just, you could look at it like the generational ideologies that are different, which is like, there is something drastically different
Mm-hmm.
from like the old baby boomers to like the generation right after them to like every one of us now. We're all so fundamentally different. Our sense of like technology, like other people, our openness is so much more, is probably like the most clear-cut distinction that I can see, is we're way more open. And what is openness? Love. We're way more loving naturally. That it's more of that divine freedom where just like a lot of us were not very like, oh, do what you're told, like a lot of the older generation, like American dream, cookie cutter, you need this and this and this. And like a lot of the generations, like again, like our age and stuff, we woke up from that shit. And we're like, oh, there's a different way that's not how you need to live your life. It's definitely an
Hmm.
option if you want to, but like you don't need to do anything. And
Yep.
that's a huge thing. That was a wild difference between, again, the older generations is they grew up in a very, I almost want to say a good majority of them have a very compartmentalized form of thinking, you know, and they're,
Yeah.
again, who are they raised by? A bunch of war vets who had PTSD. Like
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
again, like when I look at it, what the effect of that is they lack a lot of love.
Yep.
And I know this again for just from the work that I do professionally to, you know, in terms of meditation instruction and stuff, is like a lot of people from that generation have like the same three issues and they're deeply rooted.
Mm.
And it's, you know, judgments and expectations, you know, just like the key of suffering, essentially, assumptions and expectations. You know, they judge everything because everything in their life was built around certain expectations of how to
Mm.
be, you
Yep.
know. And the one thing that's really messed up is secrets. Withholding truth and being like family secrets is a huge thing
Oh.
back then. And it all
Hmm.
revolves around shame and not
Mm.
wanting to be perceived in a certain way. And then the last one is really just a withholding of love. They were not given the type of love that we need as human beings.
Yeah.
And until they really can accept that, they can never learn to love themselves.
Yeah.
That like it's okay, they just didn't know. Like, and that's a huge part of the or like the maturation of like us developing as like mature species is like we have to really be able to forgive someone. And that doesn't mean like forgive and forget, but it means to learn that they didn't know any better.
Hmm.
And then that's the real way we can forgive them. Because it's
Yep.
like, would we get mad at a toddler for having a knife and like cutting up the wall or grabbing a Sharpie and drawing on the wall? It's like, no, it's a
Mm.
little kid. Like, you can be mad at them and express that. You're the asshole in my eyes because they're just a kid and they had the access to it. They didn't know any better. You
Hmm.
can't blame them. They're still learning how to walk and talk. You know, you're the conscious person, you know,
Exactly.
so it's like that's how I see it now is like even in this switch that we're entering into, it's like it's going to take us to really lead with love because that's what we've kind of been naturally attuned to, and that's the opportunity that we have, and why I see a lot of us healers and light workers and, you know, all those who are tapped in, why we're in the realm of where we're at is because we had to go through those trials by fire to really come to the point of recognition of where we're at, where
Yeah.
we can continue to dance our dance and just inspire people by doing us. That's
Yep.
it. Like Johnny Appleseed and Johnny Applejanes just tossing out, you know, just little seeds of knowledge every now and then just through being us. And then every now and then someone will plant them.
Yeah.
You know, someone will sow that seed and be like, oh, I like that. You
Yeah.
know, it's what you said earlier, like that interaction was like, oh, he didn't want to engage and fight with me.
Exactly.
Why? You know, so I think
Hmm.
that's the beauty of like the live love, where again, we're always bringing it full circle, where it's all about just that divine respect and just remembering that each person's on their journey and you're a part of your own journey, they're a part of theirs, and it's all divine timing. And you know, just to be more aware when life is gracing you with something, what it
Hmm.
could be providing you, and
Hmm.
always seeing it that. Because, like, again, like I double down and tell people that think that the love aspect is super cliche and nutty, but it's literally the only thing that I would say has kept me through these past like few years is just like loving more. When I
Yeah.
didn't know what else to turn into the one thing I knew, love.
Yeah. Right. Mm. It's a good
What else I
vacuum.
got?
What else do we got, man? That's so true. And there's a lot that don't know even they don't know how to turn to that, and it's unfortunate. It really is. But at least you're doing your thing. You know, like you said, you're giving out the seeds, and it's up to everybody else to plant it themselves for sure.
Yeah, that's all we can do in this world is just uplift each other by that. Just an
Hmm.
act of kindness. And it doesn't need to be anything like trying to teach anyone wisdom or not, but just be kind.
That's it. Be a good person. That's it.
Yeah. End the cycles when someone tries to present it to you. I think that's probably the
Yeah.
most subtle practice was for me learning this one was just because I grew up, my parents were super like road ragey and would
Hmm.
always be like, you know, quick to call something out or call someone out or just be super emotional while driving. It's just like, dude, that was definitely a pattern of mine for way more years than I would be comfortable saying. But it was one of those things where for me, it was like, it was a huge shift. And the most easy yet subtle but powerful ones was when I just said, I'm grateful you didn't hit me. I hope that you don't hit anyone else. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Mm. That's it.
Blessing someone when someone tries to wrong you,
Yeah.
bruh, next level. next level compassion and humility. And it's
Yeah.
not coming from a sense of a nose up, like, ugh, you peasant driving like an asshole. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like, I'm sorry. Like, it's a heartfelt and sincere, like, for you to be driving like that, where you don't have a concern for your own life or mine, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I truly am,
Yeah.
like, and to have that disregard for your life and others is like,
Mm.
that's a sad place to be in.
It's
Because I
almost
remember
pain.
that exactly. Well, it's, I mean, to a degree, it's just, it's wishing them almost like
The best.
the best. Exactly. It's wishing them the best along their road, where it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to see that you're hurting. I love you.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm.
know, and that's really all we can do. And just, again, like a simple blessing and a simple prayer is just sending someone your best intentions, because you know it doesn't need to be like that.
Mm.
I think that's probably the biggest
Mm-hmm.
heartstring that gets pulled for everyone, especially lately with everything that's been going on. It's just like, it doesn't need to be like that, but it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm. There's a level
spirituality,
where it does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
paradox 101. It's just like, oh,
Yeah. That's great, man. Wow. Forgive them, Father, for they do not know.
100%, 100%.
Damn.
And when you start to see the realness of capital T truth, you can even go through the Bible and see all the bullshit, but
Yeah.
you can see the notes that really hit.
Mm-hmm.
You can really see those. Like, I wash away the sins, washing away that energy using nature, baby. Baptizing, using nature to energetically cleanse you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and that's probably the most important one. I honestly, for me, I'd say the most important one would be a walk through the valley of the shadows of death.
Mm.
It's like that whole line and imagery is perfect. I
What is
love
the
it.
line? Do you know? Can you recite it?
The whole line, no. That's the only essence that I remember, is because it's the story aspect of it, where it's the kingdom of heaven is within, but we have to overcome these valley of the shadows of death in order to obtain liberation.
Yeah.
And it's that valley of the shadows of death, which is the only thing we actually experience. We don't actually experience death. We're just in the valley of the shadows of it. This
Oh,
whole reality
oh, I get it
is
now.
this
It's
whole
the
reality
shadow of death.
Exactly. This whole reality is just the temporary image of what we are. We're eternal.
Yeah.
So when we overcome that inner looking of, okay, well, what are our shadows of death? Is it
Mm.
the attachment that I have as this person? Is it the attachment that I have as like a spiritualist or an athlete or a musician?
Yeah.
Like, it's all of these things that we have to be willing to detach and depart from, to let die. But in truth, it's just a thought. It never
Mm-hmm.
really existed. So that's where it's just illusory. The shadows and the puppets on the wall could freak us out, but in truth, it's just a little mouse and a little thing of cheese. It's nothing crazy, but that's the kind of ethereal approach that we could take with life, is to see it more as a fluid
Yep.
versus seeing it as this dense physical matter. But it's the same things with our attachments, seeing them like we're just trying to hold on to smoke,
Mm-hmm.
but when you overcome that and you look within and you really do just question your fears and those doubts, you come on the other side, just as we talked about earlier, feeling refreshed, feeling
Mm-hmm.
anew, feeling reborn, being like, oh my God, like, it didn't kill me. Well, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there, valley of the shadows of death.
Wow.
Like, we just create so much. Again, we're the perceivers of our reality, we're the creators of our experience. If
Mm.
we choose to willingly see obstacles, there will be obstacles. The realist may say, but there's going to be things in your way. But again, it's just, is it an opportunity? Is it I get to do this, or is it I have to do this?
Ooh. Ooh. That's good. It's all mindset, man.
100%, because then, we can break that down energetically.
Go ahead.
It changes everything. It changes everything. Like, the projection aspect of, like, if you put yourself in a position where, I'm going to be awkward, I'm going to be quiet, I'm going to be weird and uncomfortable, and you walk into a space, that's the energy you're radiating.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Damn.
Even
Yeah.
just in terms of personal, like, I guess you would say, like, relations with people. Like, if someone's going into it like, ooh, I'm going to go get this girl's digits, I'm going to go, we're going to go hook up, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you're probably not going to get that shit.
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you go about it just as a general conversation of respect, like, I'm really interested in this person, I want to go
Yeah.
talk with them, let's go play and hang out.
Yeah.
hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. And then it's just like generally leads into a friendly conversation. Then you might happen to get a number and you may go on a date. But like your entire approach changes. And again, it's the way I've looked at it, and it's probably one of the final things naturally that comes up when you ask me what I was working on. It's fully living that love in the sense of letting go of judgment, letting go of assumption, letting go of expectation. Because the way I look at it is assumptions like lead to judgments, expectations lead to letdowns. That's the root of suffering. Okay, so how can I fully love life? How can I fully live love? Okay, well, no, none of the suffering. Get rid of all the things that might do. So I'll go into an experience and just have fun.
Yep.
I don't really care what comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know whatever it is, again, it's that trust. It's that divine timing. It's just like, all right, cool. Not yet. All I know is that I'm doing my part by going out into the world and acting. And anything else that comes from it is just divine timing.
Yeah. No expectation of outcome, right?
No expectation of outcome.
That's liberation right there, man. Mm-hmm.
And
That's
then
the vibe.
and I mean, ultimately, again, it's the same thing with others. You know, expectations is what we could say is probably our assumptions on life. Judgments are assumptions on people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so or situations, right? You know, so it's like if we really want to live in that pure flow, that capital T truth, it's to really just live in the full understanding of namaste. It's like the divine respect between each being. It's like you have your own life, you have your own story, your own experiences, and all the people in your life have their own stories and experiences that have impacted you and all these other things. And it's like, I don't know shit, but what I do know is what's right here now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's all that matters, is just giving up the personal tinkering to just witness the beauty that is.
Yeah. That's love, man.
Open.
Open. Open to whatever. Just open to the moment.
Mm.
To
Yeah.
whatever happens in the moment. And when you're not open and you close yourself off to that experience of love, then yeah, you're gonna close off the moment, and there's gonna be some kind of static energy that's not gonna come through. Yeah, and just it's I don't know, life's not gonna be as fun. It's not gonna be as joyous, and you're not gonna be able to connect with people for sure.
Connect with people. You're not gonna be able to connect with nature. You're not gonna be able to connect with yourself.
Yeah, that's what it's
And
all
that
about.
such a huge disconnect. And it's funny when you talk about it and just you look at love as a force. It's just like, dude, love is a powerful force, but we have to align ourselves with the natural properties of love.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest trick. It's like, what is
Mm-hmm.
love?
That's the question, man. Because it's more than just what you see in the movies, and it's more than infatuation. It's more than lust. It's more than
Yeah.
just wanting somebody or something. It's like the ultimate teacher. It is. I mean, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I'm not gonna act like I know. I think it's all in our own accord to figure out what this thing called love is. But it's way more than what we've been told and what we've been shown our entire lives. And yeah, the only way that you can know is to just be it. Can't really read
Ooh.
about it, can't really listen to podcasts about it, but you just in order to really know love, you have to be love. And it's a never-ending
Yeah.
process. It doesn't stop. Every day I'm waking up, I learn something new about love that I
Right.
didn't know the day before. It's
Beautiful.
beautiful.
I love it. I love it. No, it's because it's that real recognizes real shit where it's
Hmm.
just like, yeah, yo, I resonate with that. And that's the beauty of this experience that we're really all starting to open up into is more and more people are waking up.
Yeah.
And there's so much more need for these types of communities that I always just implore people to start them. You know, there's a need for people that need community and to be tapped in. I know that's why I started the Building Brotherhood event, because I was doing all these sacred circles with women and being like, this is dope. Why the fuck don't we have this? Like, seriously, though, I was just like, oh, these are a collection of like tapped in women. Like, okay. And then I started to realize that through this work and just the networking that I was doing in that kind of like the spiritual community is just like, oh, like authentic, like tapped in men are rare. And I was just like, well, that's funny you say that because all my friends are tapped in. And it was just like, yeah, but that's just naturally what happens, you know, when you gravitate, certain things switch,
Yeah, like
people come
attracts
into your
like.
life. Exactly. And so I was just like, okay, well, let's start to really put this to the test. How many people would be down to meet up? And then boom, first group, amazing. amazing.
That's
We
awesome.
ran over our time and we're just like, shit, we gotta go. But like ended up talking for like hours after. I was like, we need a day. Like you
Mm,
could just feel the energy. And the thing is here is too is it was men of all different walks of life, colors, creeds, and preferences, and that's a thing that like just the different energy aspect that we're all tapping into, despite having our own balance of feminine and masculine, being able to all tap into like the masculine experience
divine
and just
masculine.
like the divine masculine.
Mm,
It's something that, again, even just the nature of going in a sacred circle sharing is honoring that divine feminine,
mm-hmm.
but it's showing the true mature way to be that divine expression of what we are,
Yeah.
not these immature forms that we see in the world that get geared as toxic. I hate toxic because it's just like, I hate that shit, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Anyone listening to this should never use that term, and here's my statement and pitch why. Because toxic masculinity or toxic femininity is implying that masculinity and femininity in the divine truth are can be wrong, and that's just
Mm,
not true. The purest form of divine masculinity and femininity are the mature forms of them. What we see as toxic are just the little boys and little girls expressions
mm,
of the hurt little wounded child of the feminine and the masculine, or the little girl and boy energy. It has nothing to do with our divine beauty or our divine potential. It's just the shadow side of it. So you can't, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like you
mm-hmm.
can't call it all toxic, because there's no such thing as true toxic. There's no such thing as masculinity that's toxic in its purest form.
Yep.
Again, it's just the immature forms. And
Yep.
that's like the bratty natures, the self-righteous, the self-absorbed, those types of things. Like, but in truth, we need more of the, I guess you would say, we talk about words being super exclusive. We need more exclusivity with like, and I guess you would say specificity is probably the better word chosen in terms of how we use language to describe these divine energies.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people now that are disconnected even from their masculinity or their femininity because they get deemed toxic.
Yep.
And that's, again, it's like it's throwing the baby out the bathwater, or it's just like we need to understand that we're in like a plurarchy, like the rule of children or boys. We're not in like even an oligarchy or even in like a capitalist society, because
Was
that,
it a plurarchy?
yeah, so it's like the rule of children or rule of boys, I think, is like the plurarchy aspect of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's like
Children
plutocracy or
that are
something like
boys,
that.
you're saying? Like little
Yeah,
boys?
it's like the rule of children. It's almost like Lord of the Flies type of shit,
Hmm.
where it's again, you come back to this society where it's just like, what's the real immature form of like the divine king, if you want to say like the divine masculine.
Oh.
It's just like, oh, being a shitty king and being a super power hungry person and ruler and not actually ruling for your people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's a masculine like immature expression of the shaman or the sage or the wizard? And it's someone who uses like spiritual concepts just to bait people,
Yeah.
who uses all that stuff just for, again, self-righteousness or their own abuse. You could look at the lover as like, what's a selfish lover as a man? Men who don't let their partner come. Like, men who don't, communicate with their partner and don't actually ask them what they want, what are they feeling, and
Mm,
practice that intimate form of sex and intimacy, that sacred energy exchange, where it's like not just treating it as a just boom, boom, boom. You can
yeah.
even probably bottle in masturbation with that for men and women, but it's like, then you have to look at it as what would be another one? You could almost say it as like the spiritualist, right? Like I guess you'd say the curious seeker of truth. There's a lot of immature ways that's also expressed in masculine wise, and how we look at modern day science and how it's always like a flex, and how it's, oh,
Mm,
you're going to interpret or you're going to hinder my science and studies, so I'm going to suppress yours.
yeah.
Where it's like there's so much of that catty bullshit where it's all just immature expressions of really the divine kings and queens that we are, like, as I always say, like the gods and goddesses we are. Like,
Yeah.
if we lived in a world where we respected ourselves enough, then we could really respect each other. But again, I say, like, more and more people are waking up to the reverence of the divine masculine and feminine, and it's hella encouraging from what I've
Mm-hmm.
seen. But it's definitely something that's transitioning us into a different realm of understanding of what it means to be people,
Mm-hmm.
especially men. Like, we're in this situation, and a lot of these situations, because a lot of ways, unfortunately, men forgot how to be men.
Yeah. 100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude, like allowing such bullshit, falsehoods and lies and to be corrupted and to not have integrity. And that's where those things where it's like you just look at how we're designed. Like women are the creators, we're the destroyers.
Mm.
Both are necessary in creation and destruction. You can't just keep creating without some type of recycling or destruction. But like when shit's broken, we're supposed to stand up and fix it. Like that's technically one of our divine roles is protection. you
Yeah.
know
Hmm.
and but even then you have to look at like how that's manifested into how we approach women and how most men see women. They objectify them, they don't see them as the beauties and queens that they are. We treat them like shit.
Yeah.
But it's like every fucking boy came from a mom. Every one of us was born. How can you be disrespectful towards that?
Hmm.
They literally have this creation that we don't have. They have this ability. Like, so this, I was actually thinking about this the other day, like how trip, because my friend, shout out Marina, and her baby Obsidian. So they came over, like, she came over for, joined me for a satsang one night, made her dinner, and then like literally she had a trippy meditation experience. And then like the next day went into labor. So it
Wow.
was just like, yeah, dude.
Ooh,
So it was just like some wild,
damn.
dope shit where it was just like, and it
That
was a long
baby.
labor. Oh,
Damn,
he's
that's gonna be
super
something else.
zen. He's
Yeah.
super zen already, I guess. Like, but it's just one of those things where uh, it was one of those concepts where I was like, ever since then, I was really thinking about it. Like, dude, how trippy is it? Like, women, like, yeah, we're a part of it. We're like the other energetic piece to the puzzle. We're not much. Like, we're the key, they're the whole door, they're the foundation, they're the structure, they're you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but just think about that, they can literally create a vessel,
Hmm.
hold two souls and energies in their being,
Yeah.
and literally create a vessel for consciousness to come and seed. That like they have like this whole, because I know so many women who are tapped in who've had experiences of like meeting their children before they were born.
Wow.
And like
Damn.
my friend Marina, she received her son's name and saw him
Hmm.
before he was born. And it was like all these different things where it's like, this is the stuff that we're tapping into, man, where it's just like, we're creating it though, as we're doing it. That's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing, where there's no one that can really show us the way, because we've been given the full keys to the kingdom. Just like, all right, love is the guide, do it up. But
Love is the guide.
we're starting to see this kind of transition back into, I would say probably shamanism is probably the
Hmm.
closest cultures that we've had to it, but it's like combined with, I guess you would say, the new age technological like understandings of it on like a
Yeah.
finer level.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like we're having to relearn all these things, but I think there's a reason for it. And if I have to look at everything in the way that I always try to take a step back from the step back to the step back, when I take another step back from this one, it's trying to see it as on the grand scheme of thing. Like, okay, we're in this snapshot of now in this crazy evolutionary arc and period for people. We've clearly hit a pivot. Why though? Why was there certain information that just didn't carry over? Because I look at birds, I look at turtles, I look at all these other things, and when they're born, they'll go exactly to where they need to go. Why don't we carry that evolutionary memory?
Hmm.
So it's always that importance, that important reference frame of just like, okay, well, what's lacking with our understanding? Like, what's lacking within our experience? And again, it comes back to that we wouldn't really appreciate the divine kingdom and really set it up how we need to set it up if we didn't fully understand what we're not.
Exactly.
We can't appreciate what we are. We can't appreciate what anything in this life is trying to present us if we don't fully get humble checked
Yeah.
by life. And what better of a humble check for humanity other than realizing what happens when people give away their sovereignty?
Hmm.
What happens when you give away your self-respect and self-love to treat your body in a way that's less than what it deserves, as the temple it is?
Yep.
It's like all these lessons are coming full force for people, whether you like it or not. And again, when you look at it, well, why? Well, clearly we're getting ready for something.
Yeah. What are we
I think
getting
it's gonna be
ready
dope as
for?
fuck though.
A new paradigm, like a new way of life, a new realm that we're going toward? Like, what are we getting ready for, man?
I think it's everything we've been talking about. A culture and a society based on love.
Hmm.
And what does it really mean? Well, we can kind of tell some of the aromas of it, like in our own experiences of it. Like when we experience our pureness, it's like, oh, I feel that warmth, I feel that love, I feel that peace, that calm. Like I feel like we'll amplify that when we have the community aspect, you
Yeah.
know, because I just know from my small scale experiences, what's it like when I'm with like a dozen people that are tapped in, that are all about love and just respecting each other.
Mm.
I'm fairly certain I slept like 3 hours that night. I don't think I ate for like 8 hours after. I was just so energized.
Yeah.
I was, you know, having such a fun, playful time that it literally just reminded me of just being on the playground again.
Wow.
And I look at a society like that, and
Mm.
to me, it's like, oh, dude, it can be really fucking dope. Like it could be really, really dope. Like imagine going somewhere and never having to worry about fear of getting hurt.
Yeah, right. Like we
Imagine
can even
going somewhere,
enter, like there's nothing. Yeah.
nothing, no sense of that fear because you are being looked after, because
Mm.
people have that community aspect again, where, you know, you're going to go to a place and help an old woman across the street just to help her.
Mm-hmm.
No praise or nothing. You know, to get into a place where selflessness and, I guess you would say, self-awareness is the predominant lenses of perception versus self-absorption and
Mm.
exclusivity. Dude, I mean, like, fuck. Look at it. Look at it in our own small examples of just being able to have conversations like this. Like, imagine being able to have a conversation with anybody on the street. You can get super deep and open, no drugs needed.
Mm.
And
Be a
for them to
completely
recognize,
different world.
yeah, and for them to recognize the beauty of that interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that.
Yeah, billions of people on that wavelength. It wouldn't look, this world wouldn't look the same. It would just be like an
Hmm.
alien world. If we were all living in love, it would be completely transformed. Like on the in the mental and in the physical plane. Like the physical plane
Yes.
would be completely
Yes.
transformed.
The physical is what I'm more curious about too, because what happens in those states of jubilation and just pure love and bliss when you're like that, yo, it's like you're high.
Yeah.
And it's again, cliche moment, you're high on life.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're literally just radiating light and power. And I would love to see different experiments, because I've already seen a few where it's like they'll test like the photovoltaic output of the body. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like what photons we emit, which we emit from our heart, by the way, for those listening. You
Mm.
know, like that's the largest concentration of the light that gets emitted from our body, because
Oh.
everything's bioluminescent in some way, shape, or form. It's just the intensity of the light they emit. And
Oh.
they've found that by people meditating on just like love and concepts of joy and happiness, that we get brighter.
Wow. Like literally?
So
Like
literally
literally.
brighter.
Wow.
So can we get to a point, and this is maybe why there's been so much corruption and persecution of this type of love movement, because you think about all the greatest leaders who've been assassinated, and any type of like musician who's really been different. Like I always look at Jimi Hendrix, local hometown hero.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why they were all so despised by the I guess you'd say the corrupt and the evil, I don't refuse to call them elite, but it's his message of love.
Yep.
He was like very anti-war, went through all that, like went through like military training, fucked up his leg or his ankle, and you know, but was just very always preaching about anti-war. Like, man, we could really change the world with love. He's like, the power of love can overcome and conquer anything. And then, you
Mm-hmm.
know, shitty drugs, ODs, throws up in his mouth, you know,
Mm.
like that type of shit, where it's just like, okay, well, if there's one thing that I look at, it's if we can just meditate and our actual bioluminescence will show a distinct quantifiable difference, right? Then let's take this a next step further. What happens when we get like a stadium, just like we would have for soccer or football or whatever, filled with people all about that same type of love intuition?
Yeah.
Do those people physically start to fucking glow to the point where you actually can perceive it?
Mm.
Can you actually see their aura because they're all so powered up by this collective intention? Because we've already seen different TM experiments where they've just had a few hundred people, and they've been able to have war treaties signed to end war and ceasefires.
Mm.
They've been able to drop crime rates. So this is where you really start to think about it, man, where it's just like, okay, well, how does our physicality actually, I like the way you're angling. I like the way you're taking it, because it's like, how does the physicality actually change when the consciousness changes?
Yeah.
When the
It's just a
consciousness is
reflection.
exactly. So is that what we see and experience? Is that people, we really do just, yo, okay, so this actually ties in a bunch of other things that I've like learned in this. I love it. I just love those real-time downloads where it's just like, we lowered our vibration. This is the descent. that statement of otherness, that realization, the original sin, that's what dumbs us down. That's what literally dims us down. It lowers us to the point where we don't resonate. But when we're so excited and ecstatic, we come back to it. Maybe this is truly what all these old writings of like the different cultures and even just different lore and just the spiritual text, that they're talking about these light bodies. That maybe that's really all it is just like when we resonate on such a level of love for self and others in life, that we just naturally brighten up. Because I've seen things and heard things personally about some people that I know that are like psychics, you know, like they're clairvoyant, they can see stuff. Yeah. And I always get certain comments on different energetic things about myself. And I'm not going to say them here. Maybe I'll talk about it in the green room, but like, it's made me believe that, because the way it's adjusted, the more I've really like learned to sail by the heart, it's changed. And it's gotten like brighter to the point where it's like no weak points, because I practiced like mastered grounding. So I was essentially getting feedback from someone being like, you should probably ground more. Being like, oh, why? Like you're incredible, like your crown's brightest I've ever seen, but like your sacral center and your root, you got to do something about that. I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I like that. So, you know, fast forward, it's just like now I can feel the energy. It's just like I'm 99% confident that if we get to a certain critical mass of society, that will happen naturally.
Yeah.
Like I think we'll just start
to kind of topple over. Babylon will just fall.
It's just the wildfire, just
yeah.
And it doesn't matter how people start, whether it be a spiritual search or just seeking liberation or freedom. I think that's the ultimate thing, is because I never really sought out spiritual stuff. It was more so wanting liberation. It was wanting freedom from this trap. It was wanting an escape from the suffering, you know? So I think that's really the initial seed for people to really take that next step. And collectively, as consciousness goes, the more of us that are tapped in and leveling ourselves up, the easier it's going to be for others. Yeah. And the more apparent it's going to be for others. The brighter we shine, you know, the easier it is for them to spot it in the darkness, just naturally. And I think that's the truest point, where if we can all collectively get into a point where a true global meditation, imagine that,
everybody at the same time,
just everybody at the same time, just sits down.
I think a wormhole would open of love and would just get sucked into a different world. If
everyone's skin just starts to fucking peel off and just turns into light.
Honestly, hey, who knows? Maybe.
That's the thing, is like we really don't know. Like, but all I do know is like the small scale experiences of, again, just being with like a dozen people. Just being with a dozen people, the state of excitement energetically, the boundless state of the body, just the fuel of the pranic, the energy that you can just feel flowing through you and around you, and connection on the heart with others. Dude, it blows my mind just even trying to think about like what thousands of people could do. Like I honestly, we're at this point where I don't know, but I guarantee you we would have a quick physiological change that we'd be able to observe and measure and like all the jazz.
I believe it. I really do. And if you're tapped in, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, if not, this may sound hokey as fuck, but
yeah. Like, what's up with these guys?
But it'd be a cool experiment to see.
Yeah,
to say the least.
So. That's what's cool too, is science is like catching up to these metaphysical attributes, and we can actually somewhat measure some of these things. And if that's true what you say, I don't know, I've never read anything personally about that, but that is cool. You can actually measure the electromagnetic energy that is resonating inside of us during these meditation sessions. Like, that's crazy.
Literally measure the photons that we emit. Like, you can literally do that. And again, like, we're always doing it. That's been one of the biggest, more scientific findings, I would say, is that everything does have some form of bioluminescence. We're all emitting light, because again, this is a matrix made of light, which to me, I see it as just the manifestation of love.
It all comes back to love, man.
Yeah. And this is where you start to get to the really interesting aspects though, because when you look at this vehicle, right, as something that we can tune, again, you think of like tuning forks, singing bowls, chantings, all these things are just utilizing our natural ability of singing, and even when we sing, even when we speak, like our chakras fire off. Like we're always firing off our centers just because of all the different things that are required to speak and to sing. Like when we sing, every center is aligned and vibrating and harmonizing. Because when you're really singing, you're singing from the diaphragm. It's resonating the coccyx. It's, you know what I mean? It's traveling up the spine through the throat. It's chumming from the chest, you know, and it's literally like vibrating the head.
Yeah.
Like everything is so powerful when we look at like the kind of spiritual tool that we've really been given in this physical form. And this is why I say, like, treating it like a temple. What if physical education was truly teaching us how to tune the body?
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to think of like, because you said a wormhole opening up. Maybe it wouldn't even be a wormhole opening up. Maybe it would be we just phase out.
Just
Maybe we just phase into a different, like,
just all of a sudden we're like, okay, we're back.
Exactly. Maybe it's like Earth, but it's just like different timeline type of shit.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, that seems a little more probable. But yeah, I mean, some kind of transformation would happen, whether it's a wormhole or we go into a different timeline. There would be something that happens, man.
There
There
has to be
has to
some
be.
type of physical. I mean, because again, it's consciousness and energy first,
Yeah,
and then it's the physical.
and exactly that people think it's the opposite, but
Yeah.
it's not. It starts off as everything starts off in unmanifest and it becomes manifest. Starts from the void, becomes physical. It's like
Exactly. This is why I say, in terms of even like people doing their own energy work and chakra, I guess you would say healing, is you have to start top down.
mhm.
People always want to start with the root, but it's just like, no, like, sorry, that's just not it. Because it's the crown is like our divine umbilical cord.
Mm.
Everything comes through source first.
Yeah,
So if we're fundamentally not tapped in with source, we're not getting any of that waterfall of energy as we should be, or as we could
waterfall.
be.
Yeah.
So that's where you kind of think about it from the sense of humility. And this is, again, this is just a download. People ask you, where did you read this? Where do you find this? This is just a download I've gotten, and I practice it, and it works, and it impacts people and myself. So I do it, and I point people towards it, because it's, when you look at it again from the step back logically, you're like, oh, I get it. Because it's when you have to come to the ground of being that it's not you at the center of it to start it off. That's like the most important aspect of the whole practice of really coming back to the pureness, that it goes outside the ego. It goes
Mhm.
outside just your body. Like, you're stemming your energy and your beingness from the creator. You're getting that energy. It's flowing down. How does that help you see in the third eye? That can clearly eradicate a bunch of bullshit just by that simple approach of just attachment and otherness. Then you come back down to the throat. Okay, well, are you speaking that truth for yourself? Are you living out your own truth in this light of love? Okay, no. Well, let's bring it back to the heart. Comes
Mm.
back, that's
Live
self-explanatory.
love.
Love of the, exactly, live love. You go down to, like, the solar plexus. It's, are you really utilizing your power as
Yeah,
this
we all have the
divine
power.
being?
Mm-hmm.
And then your solar, I guess you would say, your sacral center is just like, are you going to be your most unique self? Are you
Mm-hmm.
going to be you? Are you going to give yourself the freedom just to do things that are creative, to express yourself?
Yeah.
And then it comes back down to the root, which is like, okay, you're in this vehicle, this
Mm-hmm.
gift by the creator. Let's keep it going back down. We're going down through the roof, through the roots, and you're coming right back up, breathing through earth. Now that you know everything is divine,
Yeah.
everything here is that divine incarnation, even earth, even you. And then it comes all the way back up with that reverence of the material, where it's just like, okay, now you have the gift that this life is. And then once you get the flow going, it just all radiates from the heart.
Yeah.
And then it's just like,
Yeah. That's the center. That literally
that's
our center. Our energetic
mhm,
center is the heart.
yeah.
It's this flow in
And
the
it's like,
body.
what does the top and the down revolve around? Because it's like, you think about it, comes top down through the bottom, comes up through the back. It's like, oh, what's at the center of this wheel?
The heart. It always comes back to love, man.
Dude,
It always comes back to it. Damn.
it's beautiful though, because, like, again, nature, life is always showing us it in the subtleties. One of my practices I always try to point people towards is fire gazing or candle gazing.
Looking at fire, just staring at a fire.
Just staring at it. You just turn off all your lights, light a candle, and just stare at the flame.
Mm.
That's it.
Mm.
And it was something that I used to do in the beginning, kind of practicing like TM and like increasing concentration. It used to be one of my exercises, that and like looking at an analog clock as the second goes,
Mm-hmm.
like just to create the stillness factor and just being like, it's essentially its ability to increase your one pointedness, your focus.
Okay.
So when you in the point now where with candle gazing, it's not even observing it as a sense of something other. It's just allowing the flame to be and just being present with its beauty. And
Mm.
one of the downloads that came through, yo, was just like after a while your vision starts to change a little bit. So like you could start to see like the energy around the flame, and it was like three bright points of locality. It was like the bottom of the flame, like that connection to, like as you say, the connection to the material, the kind of fuel of the air coming up and through. And then it
Mm.
was the tip, was its own kind of like branch, right? So it's just like
Mm.
it's giving off the heat, it's radiating back around. But at the center of the flame is its brightest.
Mm.
And it was just this hit where it was just like connection to the heart to the fire. I was just like,
Wow.
oh my God, it really is like all love on the deepest level that I didn't even think it was. Like, dude,
Damn,
yeah,
that's
man, it's
powerful.
next level shit.
I like
Like,
that.
it's the subtleties, dude. Everything is a teacher if we really allow ourselves to watch it. And that just goes back to Native American culture. I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it was some of the Plains Indians. They were just like, part of worship is just to be,
Hmm.
essentially, is like just to really give reverence to nature is just to listen and see it.
Yeah.
So it's just them just sitting out in the plains looking at the mountains and the way the breeze just moves the grass and the clouds, and
Yeah. Just being
just
there.
observe it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just observing it, just allowing everything to be, and you just to lay witness to it in reverence.
Yeah.
Like,
Beautiful.
oof.
Their belief systems, like Native Americans, very, very unique, very tied to the earth, you
Hmm.
know? Very, definitely, like you said, observational of the earth. Different than
Yeah.
most, dogma of other regions. Something that we've
Yeah.
lost.
And see, this is where honestly, this is might be a tough pill for some people to swallow, but this is where I look at it in the sense of the adolescent. That was probably one of the origins of the kind of adolescent aspect of how we developed. Like maybe I see the natives as were more childlike. They were super tapped in, but where did they get capitalized on? Where did they get cannibalized on in the sense of their culture and their peoples?
Mm.
Oh, well, genocide hit because you assumed everyone lived and loved like you do.
Yeah. Mm. That's a tough pill to swallow, too.
100%.
Mm. Yeah, like over virtuous idealism on love.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Super loving, too loving. Should have
Yeah.
let some of them motherfuckers die, but they couldn't.
Mm.
And that's where you have to look at it, where I was just like, okay, well, why do we have to go through lessons of being hurt? How did I look at my life and just some of my experiences, I came to realize I went through a really kind of like violent home and upbringing, and like really like, I guess you would say chaotic upbringing as a kid, purely because it was the trial of fire that I needed to not have my heart on my sleeve.
Damn. Yeah.
And it took me to realize that, to actually fully forgive and let go and love my parents again. So I was just like, bro, like, you guys fucked up. Like trying to love each other while you're trying to raise kids, and like going through a bunch of like separations and fights and all that stuff. I was just like, you know, they were doing their best. I should rephrase that. They were doing what they knew. I don't really want to say anyone's doing their best. I don't know if they knew if they're doing their best or not. They're just doing what they do.
Mm.
But it's this sense of, I had to learn how not to be through all those experiences. It
Yeah.
made me value the love, the light even more. And that was incredibly important for me to experience as in my youth, because it helped me avoid getting taken advantage of and being hurt and abused by so many people. I still
Yeah.
did it in my own ways, but I could have easily been, I guess, how would you phrase that? Preyed upon,
Yeah.
if I wasn't so, you know, awake and tactful from waking up from being super naive and gullible.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Baptism by
Yeah,
fire.
only way.
Damn.
It's another thread of attachment, or another common thread I've seen from those who are about it, is that we've all had quite the trial by fire in our own life.
Hmm. Everybody has.
Yeah, just those who have questioned it and
Yeah.
chosen to learn from it. And that's, again, it's just perception.
Hmm.
It's how you see it. Like, people can choose to play the victim and point at everyone else their entire life, but like, fuck, you got to choose it at one point. Like, you're just choosing to continue the pity party.
Yep. It's okay.
And
We got
that's,
forever. We
we
got,
got forever.
doesn't matter. You can play the game as long as you want.
You know, I actually, with how things have escalated these past few years, I have really questioned our how long we had to figure things out.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, it
Oh
might not be
yeah.
long, actually.
I think again, like I look at it now and I see, you know, these types of conversations and just the points that we've talked about is just, you know, if we're already conversing it, it's a seed in consciousness already somewhere,
Yeah, we're putting it
you
out
know.
there to the ethers. It's coming from somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from.
Hey,
Somewhere in us.
maybe future selves. That's the thing that I'm always like, oh snap, like
Yeah.
that happened.
Mm. You mean like there's some kind of future tapping into this moment right now that is kind of channeling something?
Well, that's the kind of trippy aspect of when you start to look into this reality. It's just like, okay, so there clearly is that highest of high selves.
Mm.
I've heard that voice, that sad guru, that inner guru.
Mm-hmm.
I've literally heard a voice where I'm like, that's not me. Like, but it
Mm-hmm.
also sounds similar to me, but it's definitely a different
Mm.
energy and carries a way more profound weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is ultimately what we come back into living and expressing, I feel, is when we come back to that pureness and that pure state, it's just the cosmic intelligence of the universe acting out
Yeah.
that we're always tapped into.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it just takes those points of questioning yourself and letting go of what you're not. Yeah, it's a trip, but
Yeah, it's a trip. We're
I mean, if I
definitely,
had
I was gonna say, we're definitely deeper than we're led to believe. We're a lot more powerful. We're a lot bigger. I guess you could say we're
mm.
infinite. We're infinite. I mean, and it depends what part of infinity you want to look at. Right?
I like that. But that's the beauty of it, right? Is coming back to the recognition that it's like, oh yeah, this is a divine playground
Mm-hmm.
where the gods and goddesses with the lowercase g, you know, were given the keys. And that's the love. That's the womb of love that we're in right now. It's our own creation. And that's the potential that I see. And honestly, that's probably what keeps me going more and more is just like every level and thing that unfolds and unlocks is just like, oh shit. Like
Here we
this is
go.
so yeah, exactly. It's just like let's stretch it out real quick. Like we gotta get ready for this. What do I want out of this experience? What do I want to do with it? Um, and ultimately it comes back to just the sense of the more and more that gets revealed, just the more and more the call to serve keeps coming up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the call just to help, the call to heal, the call to keep doing my own thing, to create, to express, to love, to dance, to be playful. Like it's going into this whole spiritual path of inner looking. It's nothing that my mind imagined it to be.
Yeah.
And if
Mm-hmm.
it did, I think that'd be terrifying,
Mm-hmm.
considering what I, you know, like what
Yeah.
yourself too is like what we stumbled into is just it's such an effortless way to live. And it's just so much more of an intimate way to live. And this is
I
where it comes
agree.
back to that intentional living, you know, where it's just consciously living life, knowing what you know
Mm.
at all
And
times is
and
just like,
recognizing what you don't. Yeah.
and being okay with it
Yeah.
through what you know. That's trust, that's faith, right?
Yeah. That's the
And
gist of it,
that's
man.
and that's the hardest part, you know, is to really dance and live by that love and faith when everything else seems so, I guess you would say, despairing.
Yep.
Yeah, like how can you stay in that light?
Yeah.
Hmm.
In the midst of darkness.
Yeah,
Oh,
I triple down on what I know.
yeah, exactly, man.
Love, that's it.
That's it, dude. It's all up to us. It's all up to
Yeah.
us. There's nobody else that's gonna do it. It's all up to us.
It's such a childlike expression of just like someone else will do it.
Mm. Yeah, we're
And
all
that's
looking for the savior,
one of
right?
those
The
conditionings of
idea.
just being a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I guess, right? That my parents will take care of it for me, or my guardian will take care of it for me.
Hmm.
But if you don't outgrow that and realize, like, no, I'm gonna take care of it for me, then you're just gonna be stuck in their suffering. It's just gonna be a hamster wheel of suffering. Jesus ain't coming back. You have to be the Jesus that comes back.
100%, yo. That's probably like the biggest gripe that I have with Christianity. Is like I love my real Christians out there who practice it and really try to live by the teachings. But for me, it's just like to sit there and assume and speculate that you're just going to get you can just keep doing your bullshit and someone's just going to come save you is probably
Hmm.
the most like man-made egoic bullshit I've ever seen in religious texts, where it's
Yeah,
just like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's like, no, if you even just look at what he was teaching, it's like he's the Christ within each of us
exactly.
has always been the pointer. And it's
Ye
like
are gods. Hmm.
the
It's the
kingdom of heaven is
total.
within.
Exactly, man. It's the total opposite. Like the Christianity and Catholicism now is the total opposite of the epitome of what Christ was teaching.
Right?
It's kind of
Christ was
weird.
trying to show us the Christ within each of us,
Hmm.
that we can all, that we are all Christ if we really see it.
Yeah, not from the ego though. Not like
No,
being
not
I'm
from
the
the
savior.
ego.
Look at me. Here I am. I'm back
Yeah.
to save everybody. No, it's not like that. It's not
But
like
what is
that.
the Christ supposed to really even mean? It just really means harmonized in truth and
Sacrifice.
recognizing your divinity. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
royalty aspect of the Christ title,
Hmm.
is like that we are all gods and goddesses. You know, there's no one above, no one below.
Yeah, man. Like you said, we're all noble. I like how you said that. You brought up this. You brought that up several times during this talk. We're all royalty. And I like that.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the noble truths. You know,
Mm,
we are all of this lineage of royalty, but it goes beyond blood.
yeah.
It's just like we
Spirit, bro.
spirit, man, our true essence. Like we are meant to be here. We are meant to have this experience. And this experience is divine. It's high. It is the experience of being the king of your own kingdom.
Oh, yeah. And
And
it
that
comes back to that point of like, for each of us now, is looking at it in that divine sense of it's your birthright.
exactly, yeah.
It's
Everybody.
like to figure this out, to know it, to
Hmm.
experience it. It is literally why you came here.
Yep.
Like, that's
Hmm.
it.
And that's it. Yeah. That's why why it's to realize what is life? What is the purpose of life? I would sum it up, I guess, and say to realize who you are, what you are, your own divine nature, and it's an ongoing process. Like I said, it's not all of a
Yeah.
sudden you just yes. It's no. It's like it's the process. You identify. You are the process of identification itself. You are the figuring out. You are the remembrance of your
Yeah.
godlike nature, and that is life.
That's
You
right.
don't just figure it out because, like you said, if you knew it all along, then life would kind of suck. It's good that every day is different, and tomorrow I might find out a different aspect of my divinity that I didn't know today. That's the
Yeah.
beauty. That's the
Yeah.
flow that we talked about. That's why we're here. I 100% agree, man. We're all here to be that, to live that, and to learn
Mm.
ourselves
Mm.
and to know thyself.
Mm. Know thyself,
Know
and
thyself.
ultimate, and you know everything else after that.
Yeah.
And that's the
You
ultimate
never know.
recognition
That's
of
the
it.
thing. You never know. Like you never like, oh, I know now. You can get a glimpse into a knowing, but you don't know. You know, there's a difference between you know
Yeah,
and
isn't that the
knowing.
trippiest thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that the trippiest thing though? Is like, you know, always the only things that we come to realize in terms of what we are is either through the recognition and absence of what we're not, or the aroma of just our beingness that we
Mm-hmm.
can still perceive. But
Mm-hmm.
the taste of our own beingness we still can't taste. And that's the gracious gift of life, is being able to exchange these windows of awareness and perspectives with another being who's also seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's the closest thing we can fucking get. It's just like, wait, you see, okay, cool, we're both seeing
Mm-hmm.
the same shit, right? Okay, yeah, what is it though? I don't know, but it's dope. Like, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of continual exploration of like the beingness, the isness, the divine love that is. And it's funny that you talk about it, like you bring it up again, and like that, you know, like we forget, you know, we seemingly forget. Again, it's just another one that popped in, like in relation to dreams, is we seemingly forget the day before.
Mm.
There's always that brief moment where, you know, there's a subtle pause where it's just a new day, the slate's wiped clean.
Yeah.
Yet there's always like some thought that'll come up, or some remembrance of some bullshit that you're just like,
Yep.
oh, and you hold back onto it. But even in the essence of just waking up, new day stuff, there's an opportunity for us to really take those subtle lessons that life's trying to teach us, and just remember that it's always a new day. Like, it's a new breath, it's a new moment, it's a new slice of now. Like, it's a choice to carry on these baggages of the past. Like, I hope that it gets to a point of such collective just like realization that some people just wake up remembering again.
Mm,
Wouldn't that be a trip?
yeah.
Just like
Hmm.
people waking up like it's the first time they've woken up before, being
Yeah, right.
like, oh my gosh, like first time, like, yeah, like I could just see that. All I know is that there's an immense power when it comes to people waking up to their divine nature. And the more and more people that do it, the harder it's going to get to ignore.
Hmm. That's what's happening right now. There's that resistance to it, that
Mm,
egoistic, collective ego resistance to that truth, because it's getting harder than ever to ignore it right now. It really is. You can't ignore it if you're tapped in. Yeah, you definitely can't ignore it. And then it's like there's the egoistic structure that's still present, but it knows something's up. Like that, the paradigm of the ego knows that something's up and it's resisting. Like the times past is resisting to the truth, but you can't hide the truth, man. Love's
well,
gonna get you.
yeah, 100%. And I think the only thing that I would say is kind of the apprehension or caution that I have is for people to not demonize even the ego,
Mm,
is to not demonize everything that we went through in terms of like
yep.
the quote unquote lesser aspects of the human nature, where it's just like, no, yo, like the ego is, again, it's like the dual dance. Like you have spirit, you have ego, and then
Mm-hmm.
through the combination of this spirit embodied, you got people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we got our person, this human experience, and both are necessary for it.
Yeah.
And to really live that love, it's like we need to operate in love, even how we treat the ego. We're
Mm-hmm.
always warring with it, where it's like it wants the war. You got
Yeah.
to give it that bear hug. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you got to give it that love, because that's all we're really doing in this healing work is just consoling the younger self,
Mm-hmm.
as I've seen it.
Yeah.
So it's always this testament of just like, are we going to really be about love on all fronts, or just the things that are pretty?
Yeah.
Are we going to give that love to the fear and the doubt and
Mm-hmm.
the otherness, and recognize its importance? Or are we just going to try to dismiss everything and just say it's all bad? Because that type of extremism is what we're at, right? Is like what's ending now. I feel is it's either one or the
Yeah.
other. It's like, no, we're coming back to that middle ground, the fulcrum. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, ooh, this is my shit. I'm all about that inner harmony and balance.
Exactly, man.
Oh yeah. Mm. Yeah, dude. Like there's a lot of stuff developing, and I'm very confident that the world that is getting created is being led by those who are aware and know what we need love wise.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we can do.
By the true kings
Yeah, man. I mean, again, it
and
just
queens.
comes exactly. Got to clarify, we're all royalty. And that's another aspect of just even this divine game is, dude, how much do you think it's going to just transform people's life? And if you look at just society, when people understand that this is just a temporary existence,
Hmm. I don't know. It's how you take it.
but but see, this is where we can see the maybe the potential of the development of society and humanity, is that maybe they did see that and they didn't really appreciate this life because of it.
Mm.
Maybe they were like, oh, fuck it, I'll get another one.
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
happens when you truly just take things for what would you say, take things for granted is the proper saying, I think.
Yeah.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's probably like a vice that could stem from that, just being naturally talented, right? Being
Mm.
naturally talented but not having the work ethic.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of what we're developing towards societal wise. Like we're going from the complete closing of the door to like spirit and life, entering this level of immense egoic like focus and technological attachments. Now we're ending that, being like, okay, technology is a tool. We need to really start to see things with a grain of salt and look at the pros and cons of things. Like that's why I think our generation is so dope. It's because like we're actually probably the only generation that can fix it, because we're
Mm-hmm.
balanced.
Exactly. And that's what it's about. It's about a balance, dude.
Yeah.
100%. We've been out of balance, out of sync for the past, I don't know how long, long time.
Youth, adolescence, where we're at right now.
Mm.
We're trying to teeter it out.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's to me, it's a lot. to me, it makes logical sense because it's my perspective. But like, it's just that sense of like, you look at ancient technology, you look at all the, like the sacred geometry, you look at all the things that they knew about the stars and cosmos. Like, yeah, they clearly knew shit that we don't know now. So the
Yeah.
technology and what's accessible is different, but they're not here. They were, from the things that they wrote down and things that they were doing, there's a lot of fucked up, weird wars and stuff going on. Like, but we also don't even fully know the past. So
Exactly.
that's the thing here is where we're at this point now as a society where it's important, I think, even more so to recognize that in what we do in the future is to be like, we don't really know what happened in our past. The only thing we know is what's happened in our lifetime that we can recall. And that's what's important for us to steer the ship away from. We know what not to do. It's very straightforward if we actually look at what is to do. And that's for us, what we've been talking about for this entire time is just love on the many different levels of it. Most dynamic thing. It's literally everything and nothing.
Yeah. Damn. Just love.
Just love. Live love. Live love.
Live love. I like that, man. Live love.
That'd be my first tattoo / shirt. No.
I like it. I can see that as a brand or something.
Oh yeah, dude.
Not necessarily like making, you don't want to make money off that, but I mean, it'd be cool to just like see as like a something, like just an idea. Live love. Live love. Or a book title or something, Live love. I like that.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this life, man. As you said, it definitely is simple. Doesn't mean it's gonna be easy. But the way to live life is really simple.
Yeah. Yeah, if you keep your life simple, and then simple things will follow, I guess. It's like attracts like.
Yeah.
Love attracts love. Love brings love.
Yeah. And until you get to that point, you're caught up in the opposites attract bullshit because you're not valuing what you are or what you want. Self-love in a different way, Yeah. It's funny how even the term self-love leads you to selfless love.
Yeah, right. That's the paradox.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that kills me about like spiritual happenings is, dude, you always get to a point of a paradox where it's like, if you hold on to concepts, you can't go past that point.
Yeah, that's exactly, dude. You have to see past the concepts. The concepts have their place, but we have to see past the concepts. Don't get attached to the concepts.
Yeah. True application, true understanding of something. And that's where, again, many people that I know in my network have awakened from a lot of the faux spiritual stuff, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And attachments and I should say like idolization and all those types of like falsehoods that just lead you to cul-de-sacs. Anytime you give your power away, it's just like, what are you doing? You shouldn't don't be listening to that person. Like,
even if
do you though, boo?
Intentioned. Yeah, I know what you mean, man.
That's a hard one because it's just like, it's really funny too, because I was asked by a person in a very negative light because they discredit spirit, divine timing, the intangible, all those things. They're like, what makes you qualified to do what you do?
They asked you that?
100%. And like, I was a little taken back by like the tone and kind of the combativeness of it. Cause I was just like, the fuck? Like, no one's like, I was kind of like honestly shocked and a little excited because I was like, no one's ever asked me that. But I wouldn't
know what to say.
I was like, your motives don't really come from a good place from what it feels in the heart. Oh, I was just straight up. I was just like, life. And they're like, what? I was just like, I was like, I grew up in a home with domestic violence. Like, I know what it's like for the survivors that I work with, and most importantly, I know what it's like for their children. I know what it was like for them when they were kids growing up that led them to this life. I know, like, I actually know quite a bit because of my experiences. And it's that knowing that I've questioned in my own self that's brought me to even more avenues of curiosity and introspection, but it's brought me again into even more and more people where life has been the greatest teacher.
Yep.
And
life
that's
experience.
Life experience above all else. It's like, because again, and then I ended it with something along the lines of, what's the highest form of knowledge? And they were like, kind of like dumbfounded. And I was just like, it's experiential. I was just like, you could do, it's experience, like the work that you learn in a lab is always the more important work than you learn in a classroom because you're actually doing it. You can see it, you're doing it, you're feeling it. You actually have to math it out. And then you have to look at it in the sense of concepts. It's like people who just read from books and have zero application of what they're reading, they're just reading someone else's theory and perspective.
Yeah.
And then it comes full circle on the whole point where it's like, you have to entertain how they got to be in that point to really utilize books.
Yeah, exactly.
But even then there's an active process of that introspection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, because I figure shit out. Like, I don't know, like when it happens, it happens. You don't really need a certificate and a title. And I think that's the biggest issue with our world nowadays is people like there's always good aspects of schooling and education, but like people have given so much weight and authority to things you can pay for that kind of dumbfound me, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You mean like paid for like self-help, spiritual help services?
All that type of stuff. Like, I mean, people that can just like take a little quiz and be like, well, I'm certified in this and this and this. It's like, dude, this isn't fucking school. This isn't high school. Like, what is the purpose of high school and college and all that other stuff? It's just, so they know you can do something. Like once everyone started doing college degrees and they essentially, fun facts for everybody. Once they essentially made student loans federally legal to take out for college, that's when college started getting pushed to everybody. Oh, yeah. So we even see the change of the egoic influence of academia, where it's just like, dude, when academics and no longer serves the point of academia, then there is no longer a point to participate in the current form of academia. Like personally, that's why you're seeing all these different, like, quote unquote, I guess you would say confrontational professors and things that speak out in all their different fields, because it's like it turned into another just arm of the media and government and whatever corporation wants to sell the most shit.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff where there's so many people that are going to have to awaken from concepts. And for some of them, that's going to be a very tough pill to swallow because that's their entire identity.
That's concept. Yeah. Their identity is a concept. Yeah. Wow.
How many people do you know? Like, I could probably name like 12 off the top of my head right now that are still in school.
They're still in like college or something?
Yeah, they're like grad school or something. I know people that have been in school 70% of their life or like 90% of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? And that whole thing right there is just its own realm of illusion. It can definitely be a very liberating thing, but for the majority, it's not a really good thing. It's turned into a point of another egoic trap. Yep. And that's the stuff that's going to be sketchy, is when a lot of that stuff starts to fall.
Yeah. Our education system. Yeah. It's just a regurgitation of information and concepts that don't really hold that much value. I mean, I guess to a certain extent, I mean, I was taught how to speak in the education system, but I don't get attached to my speech. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't get attached to the concepts. I don't know. I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though. It's yeah.
It's turned into a potential vice for a lot of people, and at the sacrifice of them actually learning what is the most important realm of experience,
direct,
and life.
Yeah,
not some teacher, not some person telling you what to believe, what to think, and really coming to recognize your own inner authority. And, it comes back to what you asked me, is like, well, how do you learn? Like, does everyone born with the intuition? Like, does everyone have that ability? It's like, yes, but you have to come back to your own inner authority first. Like, you have to start to recognize that, it's not your mind that's telling you these things. It's not your emotions telling you these things, or the body giving you some type of physical sensation. It's something else. Yeah. It's something that goes beyond all of it. Yep. And it goes beyond what you know, or what you believe yourself to know.
Yep.
So yeah, it just turns into this wild dance of just like, man, paradoxes on paradoxes. What can you say?
And it doesn't stop. It just keeps going. It doesn't end, but that's okay.
Right.
That's cool. That's part of the flow.
Because the thing is, right, it doesn't really change. That sense of me and self never goes away. It just subtly changes the depth of it. It's like, it's funny how you would call it like unfoldment. Like, the sense of self expands each time you peel something back.
Yeah.
It's no longer just the body.
You're unfolding. Like, it's always all there, but then it unfolds in different
ways. I like that. I like that, especially with the tutting.
Right? The visualization. Wait, what is that? What is that dance? Where you go?
It's like this type of stuff, like the hard pops and locks is tutting. So it's like,
yeah, that's our experience. We're
I
just
love
we're just
that.
pop locking and dropping into self realization. Oh man,
Oh man, that's a great book title right there. Pop,
pop
lock, and
lock
drop into self-realization.
by
A
Gary
guide
Hansen.
to a guide to unfolding.
That's my first book.
You
Wow.
heard it here first. That's great. No, it's dude, that's the perfect way to put it though. It's already there. You're just unfolding it. You're just
Yeah.
unwrapping the gift.
Mm,
That's already there.
damn.
You are the gift
We are the
that you're
gift.
unwrapping.
It's amazing, man. It really is. When I
Oh
go
yeah,
into these
dude.
kind of conversations and these kind of layers of the human experience, um, I don't know. It gives me so much gratitude to be able to just have the experience, to be the experience. That's it.
Mm,
To go to these depths, to ultimately
yeah.
realize it's all one. It's all one depth. It's all one
Mm,
experience, flow, one process, just unfolding. And the good and the
yeah.
bad, the positive, the negative, it all means something. It's all perfect, like I said. To
Mm,
realize that, that's something special, man.
it's
And
all perfect.
I'm glad that we could channel this energy and
Always.
be here for each other, man. Um,
Always, yo. I love these talks. It's just like because rarely can you just hit the ground running, and it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We should probably press record. Like,
yeah, you can already tell like it starts early. 100%.
yeah,
Well, man, I think we can probably wrap it up at that, man. Pop lock and dropping into self-realization.
I love it. That's
Do you have
got
any
to be the
closing
first.
words?
It's got to be the
Anything?
first.
What'd you say?
Ooh, I would just say reiterate what we've been talking about, yo, is live love and to explore the depth of what love means to you and to what love means for others. And if there's one thing that I can carry over from the talk that I had with Rusty on love, it's to recognize that we judge ourselves. And that's kind of the textbook of this free will, this
Mm-hmm.
divine light. And if there's one thing that I've heard that's really echoed true to my heart, it's been we judge ourselves in this, the end of this existence, if you want to call it that, of this temporary state by our withholding and our giving of love and our ability to receive it. So when it says, when you hear something like live love, really look at how you carry yourself throughout the day in that operation of love. Are you reading that book you want to read? Or are you going to spend certain time doing something you've done every day? Are you going to love yourself enough to experience something new or to repeat the same cycles that don't fully serve you? Are you going to love yourself enough to take a pause if you've been doing so much and just be and relax? There's so many different forms of what we need in terms of love. And as you said earlier, Gary, they're all situational. They're all circumstantial depending on what you need in the moment. So are we being self-aware enough to give ourselves the love we need in the moment? That fierce love to be courageous, to dance
Yeah.
our dance, to speak our truth, or to dial it back and let someone flourish, to hold space and just listen.
Mm, mm-hmm.
You know, we can show up in so many different ways each day, but if we really try to perceive life through the forefront of that thought of just live love, be loving to others, be loving to yourself, we don't know. Whatever truth or subtlety that you need to hold on to as that lens to perceive experience, just try to perceive experience through that lens
Mm,
and just see what life shows you back. Because
mm.
I guarantee you it's going to be magical. It's going to go beyond your expectations and it's going to reveal to you something that you needed to see. That's just going to continue this dance of refinement and unfoldment. But live love is the easiest mantra to kind of encompass all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the intentional tantric living of life, is just be aware of it, be present. Just don't overlook the film.
Mm.
Don't overlook the beauty of what life's giving you, even in the small subtleties and the quote unquote mundane. Because taking a breath is magical,
Yeah.
and we don't realize it until we take our last one.
Damn.
Doesn't need to be, but
Doesn't need to be, but sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it be like that.
yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. But every breath is a renewal of this contract, you know. And that's the thing. It's like everyone is just that. It's an opportunity to drop away, live love.
Live love. Wonderfully said, man. Wow, this was great. Thank you for coming on here. You're a wonderful human being.
Oh, it's likewise, man. You're great. I love it. That's why I'm
This
always
was really
down.
cool. Let's definitely do this again. Obviously, we'll do it again, but like, man, I gotta digest what we just talked about. I gotta like sit with that for a little bit and just be still. This was great. I
Yeah,
don't even
man.
know what else to say. Love as the foundation to the kingdom of heaven.
Mm,
And with that,
beautiful.
I thank you for coming on here again. Thank you for
No,
everybody
thank
that
you, man.
listened.
Namaste. Thank you,
Namaste.
listeners.
Yeah, and peace out.
Marinate, marinate that one.
Marinate in that gravy.